Good evening, everyone. Will you please take your seats? I'm calling our meeting to order for March 4th. Before we begin, we traditionally start with a moment of silence, so I'll please ask you to silence your cell phones. Now is the time to do that and not interrupt our flow of business. And now, if you would like, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pam, you're up for announcements.
Good evening. We have 5 different announcements tonight. We're going to start with the CATS Micro Transit launch. CATS Micro is an on-demand shared ride service for the same fare as a local bus or rail trip. It's launched last week in northern Mecklenburg County. CATS shared that on-demand trips mean you can access service when needed within the service hours. The wait time for the service is intended to be no more than 30 minutes from the time of reservation to the time of pickup from your requested location within the service zone. However, traffic delays may impact these times. All CATS micro trips must be scheduled through the CATS Pass app or arranged by calling the CATS customer service 704-336-7433 on the day of service. Latta Place Community Meeting. The county will reveal the final design for Latta Place at a community meeting on Thursday, March 20th at the North County Regional Library in Huntersville. The meeting will take place from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. in the community rooms A and B on the library's lower level. The library is located at 16,500 Hollycrest Lane in Huntersville. Registration is requested. Visit the historic Latta Reimagined public input page to register. The county shared that the design concept is built on years of resident input, historical research and analyses, and thoughtful discussions about how the Mecklenburg County community acknowledges and shares its history. The county anticipates Latta Place will reopen to the public in 2026. And we will have Michael come up to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. We do have good news. Friday was our bid dates for the Torrance Lytle Center. We did receive some bids. Some of the concerns was maybe we wouldn't. We did get bids. We got good bids that are within budget. Just checking out their qualifications, confirming that now. So hopefully we'll have a contract signed next week or two. There's a 100-day construction period for the repair. So hopefully that time frame will start pretty soon. Thank you.
And then Huntersville Police Department has events. The High Five Friday is at Torrance Creek Elementary on March 7th at 8 a.m. to 8:45. Career Day at Bonnie Cone Leadership Academy is March 7th. Senior Lunch and Learn at Lake Norman Baptist Church on March 12th. The Career Day at Barnett Elementary on March 20th at 8 a.m. High Five Friday at Long Creek Elementary is on March 21st. Touch a Truck is at Novant Huntersville on March 22nd. And remember, you can always connect with us by visiting our website at huntersville.org or sign up for our newsletter, the Huntersville Hub, or follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Nextdoor. And you can always download our app. Thank you.
I wanted to take this opportunity to you, Pamela, to Ethan, and the entire communications department. Thank you. I wanted to publicly thank you for taking the time to actually hear us, the board, the neighbors, the residents, in regards to highlighting the history around Black History Month in the town of Huntersville. So thank you. We truly appreciate that.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
It is my honor today to read a proclamation for Women's History Month. We are wearing white this evening to honor the suffragettes who fought for women's right to vote. Whereas Women's History Month is a dedicated month to reflect on the overlooked contributions of women to United States history, from Abigail Adams to Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth to Rosa Parks, the timeline of women's history milestone stretches back to the founding of the United States. And whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas American women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere in the life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside the home. And whereas American women have played a unique role throughout history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation. And whereas American women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation. And whereas American women have served our country courageously in the military. And whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements which create a more fair and just society for all. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim March as Women's History Month in Huntersville, North Carolina. Microphone. For those of you not here, have been here before, please provide your name for the record. You do not need to state your address. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. Please do not expect the board to comment or respond to your comments directly. If you would like a response from us, you can email us at boardmembers@huntersville.org. Most importantly, speakers should be civil and courteous in their language and presentation. Insults, personal attacks, accusations, profanity, vulgar language, inappropriate gestures, or other inappropriate behavior are not appropriate here. This includes, but not limited to, bigotry, slurs, or bias against any individual, group, or individuals based on race, religion, national origin, sex, disability, age, political affiliation. Discriminatory and defamatory comments are strictly prohibited, and that means that if those do happen during the course of your comments, that I will hit the gavel and you will be asked to stop. So we will begin with Bill Russell. You have 3 minutes.
Bill Russell, President of Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce. In the 1990s, when I first moved up here, the property on which Burkdale Village sits was a 52-acre dairy farm owned by Buck Knox. Sometime around 2000, Peter Pappas asked to meet with me, and he shared that he was creating this village center that would have its own restaurants, retail, housing, even a movie theater. Pappas Properties in Crossland was actually a sponsor of our 2002 Business Expo, and he unveiled what that center was going to look like, and it created quite the buzz around the expo that day. But not everybody was completely on board. There was those who wanted to keep Huntersville rural. There was those who had the rallying cry, cows, not condos. But our town leaders understood at the time we needed a balanced tax base, and this project would bring amenities and jobs to Huntersville. For years, people have confused Burkdale with downtown Huntersville. I mean, it does have its own downtown presence. And it became a model mixed-use project that people sought to replicate across the country. But with anything that's a quarter of a century old, it has to improve. It has to change. It has to reimagine to remain the destination jewel we have all loved. This is not a strip mall. It's a destination for business, retail, hospitality, and living. Over 5 million people visited Burkdale Village just last year. 5 million, think about that. And it's also the #1 taxpayer in this town. Jamestown is looking at making a $200 million investment in this property. Among the amenities is desperately needed parking, no question, a hotel and conference center, and Class A office space so people can work where they live and be less dependent on their automobile. Some may say we have vacancy in office space and people are working from home. And that might have been the case during COVID, but now companies are requiring people to report back to work. And the simple thing is this: we don't have this type of Class A office space in North Mecklenburg. Bottom line is this project is supported by your 2024 plan. It will add $200,000 in additional property tax to this town. It will create an estimated $212 million in estimated annual employment benefits and $15 million in new resident worker spending. In simple economics, this is a great investment for the town of Huntersville and our future as a community. The Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors unanimously supported this, and we hope that you will approve these improvements.
Thank you, sir. Audra Collins, you have 3 minutes.
Can y'all hear me okay? Work. Okay. I'm Audra Collins. Last time I was here, I said this is Huntersville, not Ballantyne. And it seems I will have to remind everybody once again. This is Huntersville, not Ballantyne. I understand Huntersville is a growing town with many families moving in. I mean, heck, someone just moved in next door to me the other day. But by doing this, you ruin the family experience. When people go to Burkdale, they want to have fun, shop for books and watch movies, check out the latest sports gear for the next sports season, not see parking decks in hotels. I was also told last time I was here that nostalgia does not pay the bills, but the families that move here do. What's the point of moving here if there are only a small amount of things you can do? That being said, look at the state of Huntersville right now. Statesville is a mess. Samford has constant gridlocks and traffic, the latter which I was stuck in the other day, and let's not even get started on Gilead. What is the point of a parking deck in a hotel if we can't even get the roads together? There are priorities we must have, and turning Burkdale into a corporate plaza is not one of them. And at this point, if it's possible, I would like to speak directly to the developer, nothing vulgar. I have lived here since 2000. I refuse to let this developer ruin this town. The more you continue to bring this up, the more you will continue to see me. Thank you.
John Foster, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm John Foster, and I'm a resident of Huntersville. Obviously, I'm here to speak on the development of Burkdale. I can remember when Burkdale was originally proposed, and also when they started construction. I'm not looking at the exact date, but it's somewhere around 2003 when Burkdale was opened. Anyone that's have negative effect on possibly doing a development at Burkdale probably did not live here at that time. You know, one thing about developments, they constantly change. Either you're growing or you're dying. And for Burkdale to continue to grow, because America changed, the world changed, you have to grow. I hope that you will be real careful and make sure that we approve Burkdale. People talk about traffic on Samford Road. Burkdale is not the traffic problem on Burkdale. I served on the Lake Norman Chamber Board of Directors for 8 years. I believe it started somewhere around 2002 to about 2008. During that time period, the state constantly talked about the widening of 73 from 85 to Highway 16. Well, we're still waiting on that. If you have a problem with Burkdale, you don't need to be here complaining. You need to be in Raleigh complaining. The people that have left Mecklenburg County and moved to Denver and to Lincolnton, that is the problem with traffic on Samford Road. It is their throughway or their freeway away from Mecklenburg County to Lincoln County. And until we get the state to be involved to widen Sam Fur, we're gonna have a problem. It's not the board, it's not their need to widen Sam Fur. That's something that the state has to make a decision to do. Anytime that we look at trying to find new things and new developments and everything else, we need to try to find out what's going on, what's new, and so forth. So I highly recommend that we approve the development for Burkdale. Don't be afraid for Huntersville to grow. We're the largest town outside of Charlotte in the county. We're gonna continue to grow. We're 69,000 now and moving on up. And we need to make sure we have amenities. I'm hoping that we start looking for the second Burkdale, because we need it also right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Bear. And then Julie, can you wave? Okay. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Robert Bear. My wife and I have lived in Northstone for about 23 years. This is more of a comment, along with Burkdale, on just the overall development going on in Huntersville. So Burkdale wants another 150 rental units. When we moved here, the majority of people living here were residents, people who put down hard-earned money to buy a home, people who have a vested interest in this town. But now apparently there's a big push to change that to transients, renters who can just pick up and leave anytime their lease is up. Your votes on these proposals will prove without a doubt whether you care more about the residents of this town or the developers and the transients. There was a lot of talk about the 2040 plan around the last election, and I'm pretty sure that everyone sitting up here said they were proponents of that plan. Well, there's a question on that plan that says, quote, "If you were able, willing, and motivated to relocate to Huntersville, what housing options would interest you?" 61% said a house with a large yard. 37% said a house with a smaller yard closer to amenities. 22% said a low-maintenance townhome or patio home. And only 4% said an apartment or a condo complex. And yet here we are, we're being inundated with rental units. 350 right here in Vermilion Village, and another 99 townhomes. Almost 200 next to Discovery Place. 35 townhomes on Maxwell. 250 on Sam Fur, hurting the property values in sections of some of the Hamptons, one of the nicest subdivisions in town. 150 rental houses on the corner of Stumptown and 21, plus plans for more multifamily on both sides of Statesville, south of Stumptown. That's over 1,500 rental units in just 7 or 8 current projects, not including however many they want to put up here on Old Statesville, across the street from the abandoned ones. And remember, many of these projects are being built on land that was zoned neighborhood residential and magically got switched to multifamily. So instead of getting nice new subdivisions and homeowners, we're getting cityscape. Why? Who does this benefit? Of course, the developers always say, well, it increases the tax base and reduces the burden on the residents. Well, they've been rubber stamping these projects for 15 years, and we have practically the absolute highest taxes in the whole state. So how's that working out for you? Must be that new math. Now the leaders in Charlotte want to cram the biggest fiasco ever down our throats, the $2 billion red line, a big train that everyone here already knows has nothing to do with transportation or traffic congestion relief. Its sole purpose is the TODs, the transit-oriented development zones. And they're going to give these developers carte blanche to clear-cut a mile-wide corridor from 485 all the way to Mooresville so they can pack as many apartments, condos, and townhouses as they can up and down that line. But why? Well, maybe there's a simpler explanation as to why they're trying to turn our whole town into rental housing as opposed to actual homeowners. Last year, the widely respected Pew Research Institute released their findings on an intensive study on voter demographics. And what do you know? Apparently, by a 2-to-1 margin, renters vote Democrat over homeowners, so the fix is in, folks. Now, my wife and I have to stay here for a few more years while our kids get a little more settled in their careers, so we'll remain here in the orange barrel capital of the world a little longer. We just pray that you don't totally destroy our town and drag our property values down before we can get out of here. We're all watching you. Thank you.
Errol Genois. And I see you have time from Frank Gammon, and I see Mr. Gammon, so you have 6 minutes.
Errol Genois. Reject rezoning without appeal of universal principles of design. Listening to the Planning Board Commissioners on Tuesday, February 25th, I decided to examine what will make inhabitants and relocation seekers want to visit or to live along the Highway 73 corridor. I found that in 1997, scholars and architects at the North Carolina State University wrote the 7 principles of universal design. They naturally support the notions of usefulness, ease of movement, safety, no hassle, catering to demands of users, likable levels of intensity and density, and mass transportation connectivity. One of the concerns against rezoning is the lack of a need of another hotel, whereas proponents advocate for any plan that will construct a beautiful place in Huntersville where everyone will want to visit or to live. It's essential to address architectural questions then to comprehend why Burkdale Village will potentially serve as a model for the Highway 73 corridor, attracting visitors, residents, and businesses. Approving a project for Burkdale Village, therefore, requires positive answers to at least some, if not all, of the following qualifications for universal design. Equitable use, that means accessibility for all. Flexibility of use, easy to circulate. 3, signage. 4, information, braille and print information. Tolerance per error means a center ramp. Low physical exertion, flat surfaces, auto doors. And 7, flexible size, having to do with shape, wide doors, floor space, buttons not only on doors but walls and floors. With respect to the hotel, will the hotel as well as the office buildings and apartments have an evacuation exit ramp in the middle of the buildings? A ramp will provide safe evacuation alternative for elevators, stairs, and for all occupants. Providing a center ramp will ensure how the new hotel, office building, and apartments will successfully attract everyone to the Highway 73 corridor now and in the future. In addition, the ramp, along with other adaptations of the 7 principles, will lend credibility to the rezoning requirements. For example, will the Burkdale area suffer from overcrowdedness, intensity of too many buildings per unit of land, and accompanying high population density, particularly caused by the heights of buildings, as well as the increased traffic from service, supply, transportation vehicles for the proposed hotel, office building, and apartments. As a result of your approval of rezoning, this will also encourage developers to ask for higher norms of the heights of future hotels, office buildings, and apartments, as well as higher intensity and density along the Highway 73 corridor. In summary, the whole concept of parking decks fails to fit the future of development along the Highway 73 corridor because local inhabitants and relocation seekers will increasingly use alternate forms of transportation such as mini transit. Aesthetically towering buildings and parking decks make landscapes less attractive to most of us. It follows that an approval of the rezoning request as is will entice developers to ask for additional rezoning requests at even higher building heights without characteristics of the 7 principles of design that provide special landscapes.
Thank you, sir. Jay Casey. And then I see Vicky, you're here. Okay, so you have six.
He's conceded the minutes, yes.
Yep, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you. I moved to Huntersville in 1985 to a community called Breckenridge. At that time, Sanford Road was a 2-lane winding or hilly road, and at the intersection with Highway 21, there was a flashing caution light. That was it. In 2000, I moved from Breckenridge over to Burkdale Golf Club area, and also at the same time moved the business I was operating from Cornelius to Highway 16 south of Denver. And so my commute every day was along Highway 73, morning and night to my office. At that time in 2000, the traffic along Highway 73 between here and Denver was a trickle both ways. By the time I retired and sold that business in 2021, traffic in the morning coming east was a traffic jam. In the evening going west, another traffic jam. And that was 4 years ago. And we all know where it is now. It is the east-west commuters, everywhere from Concord to Lincolnton and beyond, I can tell you from personal observation, that are causing the traffic jams on Sam Fur, if that is our concern. And in the process of watching all that, I realized there are certain things we don't control. We don't control when the North Carolina Department of Transportation will widen Highway 73. We were promised in 2005. We're still waiting. We don't control the fact that North Carolina is a desirable place to live, and all national reports say more people are coming, and they will move here. And I know that the owners of Burkdale Village do not control all of Burkdale, what people think of as Burkdale. There are out parcels that they do not own, that they cannot coerce to cooperate with them to make an easier plan for expansion of parking or whatever. They don't control that, and we still reserve property rights to people who own them. We can't take them over. So I'm going to ask you, when the time comes, that you will vote to approve the proposal before you for several reasons. It is spread over several years. It's not going to be instantaneous, all at once chaos. Things will happen and parts will be put into place over a number of years, as I understand it. And I will admit, it is an improved plan over the original. The movements, the changes, the concessions they've made, I think, are an improvement and certainly more appealing, less of a problem for those who have to face some of the worst of the congestion. I know in particular one of the owners of a business in Burkdale Village, and he tells me all the time that getting his patrons there is difficult because of parking, the lack thereof, the jamming, and it affects his bottom line. He is a business owner trying to make a living that way. And I also know that the additional tax revenue that just this addition and improvement of Burkdale will bring to the city of Huntersville will lessen the pressure that you must feel to increase property taxes on my home. I live in Burkdale, and the parking is not an issue for me personally, very selfishly, because I can walk to all of it. Burkdale Place, Burkdale Landing, and when they build that pedestrian bridge across 73, we're promised, I can walk over there. I don't need to drive a car there, but I have been there enough to see the jam, the problems, and we have to have some solution. And the best way we can get ultimately 300+ parking spaces added to Burkdale is with parking decks. Better placed, better situated, and will help ease the congestion, to help the business owners there, the tax base in our city, and we cannot turn people away. They're coming, we have to get ready for them. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Kevin Zwierko. Hope I didn't totally annihilate the pronunciation. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and Kevin Zwerko, live in Huntersville, and I'm here to speak against the non-discrimination ordinance. Recently came to my attention, and, obviously I want to know a lot more details, but based off of principle, how I've seen it work across the nation before with stuff like this, you basically see consciences being pitted against each other when you start to involve non-discrimination ordinances in the manner in which it appears to be applied. I just would like to cite from the North Carolina State Constitution, Article 1, Section 13, all persons have a natural and inalienable right to worship Almighty God according to dictates of their own consciences, and no human authority shall in any case whatever control or interfere with the rights of conscience. And also under Section 19 of Article 1, nor shall any person be subjected to discrimination by the state because of race, color, religion, or national origin. Now, we all know that expanding the language for these different discrimination categories pits ideologies directly against each other. And from what I'm aware, I believe from the town manager in the past 7 years, there have been no actual complaints lodged, and that doesn't mean that there isn't necessarily a problem. But I would like to know, why is a non-discrimination ordinance being proposed when there is no actual apparent problem? So it seems like a political solution in search of a problem. And also, it really does seem to foster an atmosphere where you're pitting neighbor against neighbor. Now, I'll say a tenet of my faith is that you respect the dignity of the person, you respect them as a person, and treat them fairly, regardless of their beliefs, regardless of their conscience. But that doesn't mean that you cede the right to your own conscience to submit to that. And I know that some people may argue that a fine against a business may be different than someone's individual conscience, but anyone who's a single business owner, a single LLC, you know that that business is you. And any attack on that business and how you operate, if you are meant to give up and cede your conscience, then why are you even having a business? And it seems more like it's a weaponization of politics when it's something that could be sorted out and handled differently. And I would just ask for everyone to consider that, and I really would like to have more details. There are clear protections in all laws at the federal level and at the state level that I think are already well in place. And again, I'd like to reiterate why we do not have a record of actual complaints or problems, and we're proposing this NDO in the first place. Thank you.
Cindy Ruhr, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Brewer, and I am not in support of the NDO. From my point of view, it seems there's already laws on the books that cover equal opportunity employment, fair housing, and services. In regards to enacting this because of hate crimes, the FBI reported only 3 crimes in Huntersville back in 2018, and no other crimes since then. So as the gentleman before me, where is the need? Where Huntersville is a welcoming, hospitable community. And my concern is that an NDO would be counterproductive. My concerns would be about businesses, small businesses, startups, that could have undue financial burdens due to the ordinance and thereby being counterproductive to fostering more small businesses right here and for us to be a welcoming town. Another concern is the application of the ordinance being highly subjective. Again, Huntersville is hospitable. Let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Elizabeth Laskowski, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I am here as a small business owner in the town of Huntersville to oppose the non-discrimination ordinance. While I believe this comes from a place of good intentions, it's a threat to my religious liberty. I've been witness to the weaponization of the government against persons of faith and wish to be protected from that in our town. We agree people should be treated with respect, regardless of their color, gender, sexual orientation, etc. However, if a law requires that I violate my conscience and deeply held religious convictions, it's not a law for the good of the people. I will always stand behind the need to respect the person, but respect should not mean I have to agree with your choices, nor serve you in a way that violates my own ethics. How could I be protected if an activist calls discrimination on me for upholding my code of ethics? Thank you.
Michael Fitzgerald, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Michael Fitzgerald. I'm a resident of Huntersville. Mayor Clark and the board, thank you for allowing me to make comments today. While everyone has dignity and entitled to respect, the well-intentioned non-discrimination ordinance will actually create burdens for businesses and create discrimination instead of reducing it. First, it places small businesses at risk. There's no protection against frivolous complaints, nor any reimbursement for legal fees or lost reputation from a complaint. It could also create a hostile business environment between pitting business owners and their customers and employees who may have disagreements and become disgruntled. Nationally, the NDOs have been used to target businesses and discriminates and penalizes those businesses who hold differing views from the government, including those with religious beliefs, which could trigger costly legal challenges. There have been Supreme Court cases, 303 Creative versus Elena's, and Master Cake Shop versus Colorado. There may be another one, but the Supreme Court and the courts have ruled on these matters, and I think the town needs to ask a question: is it prepared to expend legal fees defending the ordinance in the courts over the years, if there's a challenge to it? Also, if enacted, the town would substitute its own judgment that are usually handled by businesses. In closing, the state and federal discrimination laws are sufficient to address existing discrimination issues. And please consider tabling this bill and trusting that the residents and businesses of Huntersville will continue to make our town a welcoming and diverse home. Thank you.
Thank you. Donald Woodard, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you, Commissioners and Mayor, for your service to our community. And special thanks to Commissioners Quarles, Rivers, Pro Temp Hunt, and Mayor Clark for responding to my email. My name is Donald Woodard. I'm a small business owner, and I live in Huntersville. And I'm speaking today in opposition of the NDO ordinance. I'm deeply concerned about the expenses and the other drain of resources to our town because of this ordinance. Based on our last meeting, our town manager mentioned that he may not have the expertise to research and make decisions on discrimination cases. So the town would have to pay an outside source, to litigate and that don't live in our community to do this work. I believe that the amount mentioned was about $3,500 or so per case. How would those expenses be paid for? Where's the extra resources to offset the cost? According to your own lawyer, the fines and levies are not enforceable. So how will we be able to recoup the expenses in the long term? The unknown financial burden on already strained resources is a huge issue, especially when there are more important issues that the town should address. And what's also troubling is that you have a respected, intelligent attorney that the town hired to advise them, and she said that you may not have any legal standing to enforce this ordinance. Yet you cite outside legal sources that support your position to give you comfort in pushing this through. Does that not undermine the credibility of your own lawyer and put into question any legal advice she offers? If she says if you say that she's wrong on this issue, do we have to question every analysis on every issue that she has? You hired her for a reason, and it would be wise to heed her analysis and recommendations. So please reconsider this ordinance. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Christine Wolak.
My name is Christine Wolak. I live on the Pottstown side of the Vermillion subdivision in Huntersville, and we deserve a non-discrimination ordinance. Imagine this: a pregnant adult woman walks into a bar, or tries to, but she's stopped by the bouncer or bartender. Or this: a veteran and his family plan a fun outing at a paintball facility, but the waiver form says no veterans allowed. Or this: a mixed-race couple goes out for a romantic dinner, but no local restaurant will serve them. Without an NDO, any of these examples would be without repercussion in Huntersville. Commissioners Quarles worried about the damage to reputations if a business is falsely claimed to have violated the ordinance. This argument is similar to the one about false claims of rape being used often to smear the good names of men. The truth is, false rape claims are vanishingly rare. Meanwhile, real accusations are under-investigated, under-prosecuted, under-convicted, and under-punished, and of course, they continue. So that will probably be the case here as well, unless we decide to do better. A previous community member said that this was not the right time for an NDO due to the upcoming election. I disagree. Now is the time. It's past the time. By November, this issue will be in the rearview mirror. Don't let the issue be like gun control, getting kicked down the road for years and then just never being passed. So please pass a non-discrimination ordinance now. Also, I want to say there's nothing wrong with being a renter and there's nothing wrong with being a Democrat. So it doesn't make you not invested in your community.
Laura Lyons. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Lyons, and I'm a Huntersville resident, and I thank you. There was a number of you that responded to my email, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I'm here to speak about the non-discrimination ordinance. The proponents on the town board are presenting an NDO without a critical evaluation of whether an NDO is in the best interest of Huntersville based on facts and need. This NDO provides questionable anti-discrimination protections while denying individual rights to free speech and freedom of religious beliefs. Any ordinance should benefit the entire community and provide protection for all. I question the impetus behind the proposal, especially since there is no climbing threat of hate crimes in our town, and I question the efficacy of an NDO. I ask that you table this, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Linda Zamora. And then you have time from Jacob Brunetta, if you could just raise your hand or wave. Okay, thank you so much. You have 6 minutes.
My name is Linda Zamora, and I'm a Huntersville resident. And I do want to thank you all that answered my emails. I really appreciate your quick answers and your explanations. I also am here to speak with real concern about the NDO. And I have a background in mediation. I have a background in counseling. I understand the importance of listening and looking at both sides of an issue. I truly do. I also come from a long line of small businesses. I understand what it takes to run a business. So I'm trying to look at this from both points of view. I'm real concerned about this, partly for the people that it's supposed to protect. And here's my reason for that concern. We have small businesses here who are the backbone of Huntersville. They put their risk out there, they put their money out there, their families are supported by this. They take all the onus of running a business here. And there are so many small businesses, it makes it so nice to live in Huntersville. It's a wonderful place to live, and in large degree because of the kind of businesses that we have here and that are growing here. But they're going to be subject to an NDO that has no protection from false or frivolous claims. There's supposed to be some kind of a mediation process. I understand that might be contracted out of here, but right now, from what I understand, this is an unaccountable, unelected, non-transparent form of litigating or at least listening to some of these concerns that people bring. I don't see that employers have protection here from things that might ruin their reputation, might ruin their business, even if they're found to be innocent of the accusations that are made against them. They have a reputation to worry about. There's so many concerns here. These are tax-paying. This is the basis of our taxes. It's the basis of our community. It certainly is what pays the salaries of all of you and all government employees. They're not people that I would think we would want to put on a fearful notice about who might walk in their business and who might say something inadvertent or mistaken or not intended to be offensive, and yet they may be accused of things. This is really, we know it's happening. There are cases all over the country where this is happening. So I'm concerned about that because I understand that it's hard enough to run a business. It's hard enough to keep a business going without putting extra burdens on, oh my gosh, what is my young 18-year-old employee who's at the counter going to say inadvertently that might lead me to be accused of something heinous like this. The other side, nobody should be maliciously discriminated. Absolutely no one, not us, not the people that you're trying to protect. Absolutely, I understand your reason for wanting to make sure this is a gap that you want to cover. But it has to be covered in a way that is going to serve both sides. My concern about this ordinance, besides the fact that it's going to hurt employers, is that it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. Rather than protect people, it creates an atmosphere of suspicion, of fear, of distancing. You might not see this right away, but it is going to subtly make people afraid of who may walk in their front door. That's not what you want. It certainly isn't what I want. We want the opposite. We want welcoming. We want hospitality. We want people to be kind to each other, to understand each other. This is just the kind of, it's a barrier that you are putting, and it will be on you if you pass this, if this kind of an atmosphere raises in Huntersville, which it shouldn't. This is not the community that we're in. This is gaslighting employers. This is putting people who may bring accusations in a very difficult position because, again, it puts a barrier to understanding their point of view. To me, this is it's a lose-lose ordinance. I don't really understand why we're going forward with this, but I think it should be tabled, and I think it should be trashed. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're on to item number 7, agenda changes, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make the motion to adopt the agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And may I now have item number 8, consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. On to 9, public hearings. 9A, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-16, a request by Cottage Properties of Lake Norman. Mr. Priest.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Yeah, so petition R24-16, currently called Blythe Landing Residential. This is a conditional district rezoning application. This is the public hearing that was actually tabled in, or continued, I should say, in February. We're here meeting again to discuss it. Here's the location. The hatched area shows the location on NC 73, right at the end or the intersection there of Oliver Hager Road. And you see it's currently zoned general residential, and they're proposing to rezone it to neighborhood residential conditional district. So just some aerial photos to give you a sense of where this is. This is immediately to the west of Blythe Landing Park, which is the town of Cornelius, but run by Mecklenburg County there. You can see the existing single-family residential homes along NC 73. So those are the properties in question with a lot of tree cover there. Just some highlights of the rezoning plan. It's a small subdivision. It's a small single-family residential subdivision. 60-foot wide lots, maybe a little bit greater. We're working with the applicant on that. The purpose is to go from a general residential zoning district to a neighborhood residential. It's increased density, right? It allows more units per acre to be developed. There is no actual density limitation for it, but that's really the purpose for it. One specific thing that we wanted to point out that is very unique and very recommended for this application is there up near on the top of the page, you can see a potential path that would connect to Blythe Landing Park. So this application subdivision would be able, people who live here would be able to just walk into the park during park hours and not have to get into their car to drive to a park that's right next door. So that's a really, really good thing. Current considerations to think about, they are looking for some modifications to the ordinance. So our ordinance, as you know, is all about connectivity, short block lengths, not really encouraging cul-de-sacs at all, but when they are there, they're short. And so the maximum length of the cul-de-sac in the ordinance is 350 feet. They're proposing 600 feet. And so they're lengthening that cul-de-sac length. Staff supports that modification because of what's surrounding it. The park, already existing residential with homes around it, and of course to the north of the lake. So there's not a lot of places to connect to, but at the same time, with the plan having a pedestrian connection from the end of the cul-de-sac to the park, kind of meets the intent of the zoning ordinance and the Huntersville 2040 plan. Can't connect vehicularly, but you can connect from pedestrian standpoint. So that's a positive that we think from this application. Also, the urban open space, they don't have any urban open space that fits the bill of what the ordinance is looking for urban open space. What they're trying to do and what we're working with the applicant on is taking that stormwater area in the back and modify it to try to meet the standards of the ordinance in the Huntersville 2040 plan. So that's currently a work in progress as well. The ordinance currently says that an urban open space can't have more than 25% of the water quality pond, the BMP. No more than 25% of the open space can be that BMP. So basically, it's a big pond. So how do we make that an open space? And that's what we're working on. So site plan considerations, we mentioned the urban open space, the connection to the park. looking to get some type of email or letter from the county saying, yes, this is good to go. We know that there's going to have to be some type of maintenance agreement. They're going to put who's going to build the actual path, who's going to maintain it. So all that stuff has to be worked out. So we know that that's coming, but that's something that we're looking for. Discussing build to lines, rezoning notes, trying to get those updated to be more applicable to this specific application. So we're looking to do that. Tree save, we did get an updated tree survey from the applicant from the last month. It's just that a lot of the trees that are proposed to be saved are being disturbed in the grading limits. So we just need to update those calculations to make sure the numbers are correct and we know that the code is being met. From the Huntersville 2040 plan, there are a lot of policies that this application really supports. So looking at the land use map and the recommendations, the 2040 plan calls for this striped area, the orange and yellow mix there, to be moderate density. And long story short, that recommends a density of 1 to 3 units per acre in regard to residential units. And this property is proposed to be right in the middle at about 1.97 units per acre. So it's right in the middle of where the 2040 plan is recommended that the density be. And then you look at the developments south of 73, there are subdivisions that are pretty similar, or if not a little bit higher than this proposed application. So it's also consistent with the densities that are surrounding it. So with that being the case, staff is kind of supportive of the general idea of this intensification at this location. It's also policy EOS 8, where it talks about we're trying to improve access to parks. Well, we've got a specific access and pedestrian path to the park, so that really checks that box. Terry Lane is immediately to the west, but the maximum 40-foot buffer for this property is being put in between Terry Lane and this subdivision. So we don't have a bigger buffer for that for residential. So we feel that that's appropriate there. Things that we're working on, the short block lengths, completing that agreement to the park, policy LU 8.2, approving some flexibility, trying to work on that open space to make that work and meet the intent of the ordinance if it can't meet the letter. So we're working on that. And then we haven't seen any elevations for what kind of houses are proposed. So we're working with the applicant to try to see if we can meet those policies about maybe emphasizing the front of the house, the porches, and then maybe taking the garage and set it back just a few feet to make sure that, you know, that policy in LU 9.1 is checked. So that's still a work in progress. Talking about the open space, this is just a couple pictures that we have from around the region that we had in mind if you're dealing with a stormwater pond, what others have done in the past. See up here, Hickory Tavern on Samford Road. There's a boardwalk that's included. Down here up at Langtree, up in Mooresville, there's a nice gateway and overlook area. And then up in the Macaulay neighborhood, really beautiful open space where you have mature trees and a playground with mature trees. So these are just some opportunities that we have to meet the ordinance, and we're working with the applicant to do that. So recommendation, staff is supportive of the foundation of the application, the intensification. We just have some design issues that we're still working through, and it'll be going to the planning board later this month on the 25th. So that'll conclude my presentation. The applicant is here and does have some slides, but I'll be happy to answer any questions in the meantime, or whatever you'd like to do.
Board, any questions for staff? You have a question for staff? Okay, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Brad. So I've got a few, but first I want to touch on, because you mentioned it in your presentation, that this project is kind of right in the middle in terms of density. When you're comparing that to other areas, are they on the same side? Because I know this side of the road is in the critical watershed, whereas the other side is not in the critical watershed. So what we're comparing it to, is it only those that are also on that side of the road, or can you kind of just give some clarity on that?
Yes, so it is larger. It is larger or denser than the properties maybe for Terry Lane subdivision that's been there for a very long time. Those are older subdivisions that have been there, but yes, so that subdivision is probably around my calculation was about 0.97 units per acre. And so this is about 1.97 units per acre. So it's right at that 2 units per acre greater. But to your point, the watershed is 50%. It allows with a BMP, with water quality control, you can go up to 50% impervious. And I think in their current plans, they're around 27. So they're meeting the watershed ordinance, and so they're allowed to go to that density. And so the 2040 plan doesn't really separate watershed from, non-watershed. So if it meets that density, it has that consistency, and then has that buffer to really say, yes, we understand that you're lower density, so we're going to have a nice buffer, then it kind of meets that adjacent property requirement.
Okay, great. And actually, you already answered one of my other questions on the impervious, because I couldn't find it in the report. You said 27%?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. And then I don't know if we have it available to us, because the idea is it's going to be right in, right out. Do we have available, like, what that section will look like once the road is widened, and how far folks would have to go to kind of U-turn around if they want to go left?
So I just did a quick couple snapshots to give you an idea about that. So the bottom right-hand side is kind of a concept of where the U-turn bulbs are. Up on the top, I took the actual construction documents that we have and kind of circled the properties in question. And so in the red, you'll see where their driveway is. So coming out onto 73, there's a U-turn bulb that you can turn left from, but it's really close. Right after you get onto 73, they'd have to make a really quick exit into that bulb to go east on 73. Now, if they don't make that, which might be possible, they can go down to Terry Lane. There'll be a left over that they could turn. Worst case scenario, if you keep on going to the left on the application, there's another bulb in between Kramer Street and Sunset Drive, Kramer Drive and Sunset Drive. So those would be the locations to make a U-turn and then go east.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks.
Great.
You already answered some of my questions. I think the only other one I've got is, do we know how close, I guess, the edge of the property that's closest to the shoreline of Lake Norman, like how far away is it from the shoreline?
So looking at the site plan and looking at the aerial photography, it does not have frontage on the lake. It's the park property to the east that has the frontage, but it's close. It's about 65 feet from measurement. You're welcome. All right. Sure.
Thank you, Brad. Mayor and Commissioners, good evening. How are you all? I'm Robert Irvin from Irvin Law Group, and here with me tonight we have Ryan Cox from Red Cedar and Patrick Murphy from K2 Engineering. And I'd just like to quickly go over a couple of these slides. I think Brad did a great job showing everybody exactly where the site is. You can see here Blythe Landing to the east. Beatty's Ford Road is going to be to the west, to the left here, and then Lake Norman to the north. Like Brad said, this is located in the moderate density, and that moderate density designation contemplates 1 to 3 units per acre. This site is coming in just under 2 units per acre, so it fits that moderate density designation from the 2040 community plan. And here's why we're here today. We're going from general residential to neighborhood residential. Single-family homes are permitted in general residential and neighborhood residential. And what we're going to do is put a conditional zoning note on the plan that restricts this property to single-family residential. So it won't be any of these other uses that are permitted in neighborhood residential. And then, just like Brad said, the land use policy recommendations, specifically that this site and this development follows the development pattern of the future land use map, and it also supports the preservation and enhancement of natural environment and scenic and natural and cultural assets, but more specifically, kind of like what Brad said on EOS 8, is connectivity to the park and Blythe Landing. And then I'd like to ask Ryan Cox to come up and talk to you about Red Cedar.
Everyone, thank you. I'm Ryan Cox, Red Cedar Homes, Red Cedar Development. We are a local Charlotte-based firm, home builder, and a developer, so we'll be self-performing on both horizontal and the vertical build on this project. And thanks, Brad, for your recommendation. We are actively working with the town on their recommendations on revising. Met yesterday on the common open space piece, making it the extraordinary, exceptional piece that they're looking for. So we are open to all the feedback that they have continued to provide, and we have continued to implement it and moved it from a separate location to the recommended location. Have met with the neighbors at the community meeting as well. We're creating additional buffer for their privacy on the back end of that BMP as well. But we're here to stay. We have worked with everybody with this project. We asked for your recommendation with this. We actually started with 20 units on this project, and after feedback, felt it was a little too dense here, so we have scaled back. We were at 18, and then now, after several rounds of modifications, we're at 17 units. And as Brad stated, roughly 1.97 per acre, 17 total units. And then in the back here, we're very proud of and have the opportunity to do this is to connect into Blythe Landing. So we will have a paved trail tying into Blythe Landing. There's recommendations that it's gated, non-gated. We have community wants it gated. Town does not want it gated, so we're open to either direction here. The trail around the BMP is a heavy focus for us, and then we have a little small pocket park in the front, but that won't count as the common open space. But it's going to be a very small knit boutique feel. Reminds me a lot of like a Saucy Burbank neighborhood. We do have, well, here's the additional information, but you can see on the top end of the BMP, or sand filter as you want to call it, there's a little gazebo area here. We'll put in a trellis, gazebo, sitting areas, heavily landscaped, and additional feedback was, as Brad presented with the additional pictures he provided, we're going to enhance the landscape budget all around the BMP here, not only for the neighbor behind on the 40-foot buffer, but just for the aesthetics for the neighborhood. This is going to be a sitting area. Maybe we'll build a little floating dock or whatever it may be over this pond area. And then the trail to the park, given the opportunity for all the neighbors to have access during business or during park hours to go to the park, and not have to go in and out with the right in, right out to traffic. But it's a great opportunity for this site. There's been a lot of eyes on this site to do a larger density here. We feel like this is a perfect fit for what could be built. And we, if you guys looks our product up, we have everything down to entry level homes up to $1 million homes. So this is a concept that we'll be providing to Brad, but we'll have about 5 to 6 different elevations here, ranging from 2,500 to 3,800 is our target for square footage. Average is a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 2-car garage on every unit. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Yep, Commissioner Walsh.
I understand you're working on or have a tentative agreement with Mecklenburg County for the path. I think in the staff report it didn't, I think you said it was going to be paved. Are you committing to paving that?
Only to our portion. If they want us to pave, we will pave beyond up to a certain point, but the agreement, everybody's open-ended to whatever. We'll do whatever both parties would like to do.
Okay, yeah, I mean, pave obviously helps people with walking issues, strollers, bikes, those kind of things. And how wide would the path be?
How wide?
How wide?
We have not had that direction yet, but I would say 5 feet.
Okay. And I don't know if this is for Brad or not, but in the staff report, there was the plaza issue. Is that what you were referring to? I read it a couple times and was trying to figure out this issue over the plaza.
So on the second submittal, there was a plaza that was added to the second plan in the front.
Okay.
On NC 73. So that plot, generally plazas are more in non-residential settings. They have buildings surrounding them. So again, it's kind of, doesn't quite qualify. So what we were trying to say in the comments back to the applicant and then in the staff report is say, well, I mean, if you want to go in the front and build that up, make a playground, fence it off, keep it safe from NC 73, that's fine too. Or you can focus on the back and then work on the mini park in the back with the entrance to the park. That's preferred, I think. And so that's where we're going with, but it was just in response to the second plan where they said, hey, how about we take this area where there's some existing mature trees and make that a nice park, saying, okay, we're flexible with that. But yes, our preference would be in the back where we started the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
And
Go ahead.
our focus will be around the common open space park in the rear. This is just a separate amenity that we're not asking to count towards our common open space use. It's just a separate use for the site.
Okay, and then just finally, I agree with staff, no gated communities.
Okay.
Board, Commissioner Mersman, you have questions?
Sorry, my water bottle was in the way of the button. So I just wanted, I think I was under the impression that if you pulled up the site plan again, that the stormwater area was going to be a dry pond, but then I heard you mention a possible water feature.
So it's possible water feature, it based on historical, and Patrick, our engineer, can speak on that. We're not factoring this to have sitting water. So the water feature is there if there's calculations that it can. This is just recommendation from several of our meetings that we had from staff, that there should be a water feature there if we can. We assume this is going to be a dry pond.
Okay, thanks, that helps. And then you did have one slide that had kind of a draft elevation on it, and it looks like you are able to recess the garage.
Yeah, so all of any plan that we do here is going to be brand new, nothing in our Rolodex of plans that and so we will meet with, going blank on the names right now, Patrick Patterson and I can't remember the other name. Audarius and everybody else. So we always go to them with our recommendations first. But these will all be two-story, similar look to this. It will have the recessed garage. This porch isn't a good representation, but it will be a full width, probably 5x8 front porch, sitting area covered.
Okay, yeah, my main was just making sure that it sounds like you are going to commit to recessed garages.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've built in Huntersville before. We did First Street, Main Maxwell, Parkwood. We're doing Walters, Huntersville, Concord. So we're aware of what we have to do for the building permit.
Perfect. And then, if the trail do you have verbal agreement from the county for the trail connection, or?
We have we can have a signature tomorrow. We're waiting we don't want a signature until we have finalization on the plans.
Okay, so then I was just wondering if it was still kind of an unknown, if you had a plan B, but it sounds like it's not as much an unknown.
Parks and Recs wants this.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect, thanks.
Board, any other questions? Commissioner Dumas?
Do you know offhand which schools this would serve?
This would be Barnett.
I was trying to figure that out. Barnett, Bradley,
and
Hopewell?
Yep.
Okay. I have a bunch of questions, but honestly, they're all about the comments that you've already said you're going to be working on. I guess I just encourage you to, keep talking about the tree save, the driveway width, and, the trail and the designs. I think that if you continue working with our staff, that
Yeah, we're very open.
I encourage you to keep working with them, that's all. Thanks.
We're also planning on having our next submittal in before the planning board, so the planning board will have it in their packets, and then you all have it in the town board.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? All right, we do not have any public comments for this one, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here on to item 9B, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-13, a request by Mission Properties LLC. Mr. James.
Thank you and good evening. Please enter my staff report into the record. So R2413 Mission Stumptown Conditional District rezoning. So this request, you see the zoning map on the screen. The current conditions, there's single-family use, some agricultural use on the property, or has been in the past, and it's zoned neighborhood residential. That's the hatched area you see in the middle of the screen. Above it, you see highway commercial conditional district and some highway commercial to the south, and you've got neighborhood residential on either side and some across I-77. The proposal is for a mixed use with apartments and commercial, and the zoning district designation proposed is highway commercial conditional district. So a little context about the location of the site. You can see the proposed site plan on the screen. And again, across or north of that is the Chevy dealership, which is a highway commercial conditional district zone. The lodges of Huntersville are catty corner across Stumptown Road, and that's 105 single-family residential units and 45 multifamily. That is under construction currently, as well as Norman Lofts directly to the south, which is 45 multifamily units, and then some various single-family in and around the area and some multifamily across Statesville Road. So the actual proposed site plan, as you see on the screen, you see the mix of commercial there on the left against the corner of Stumptown and Statesville Road. That's kind of the commercial node within this development, where across the public street A, in between Statesville Road and the extended Maruti Avenue, you've got the multifamily portion of the development with some vertical mixed use in one of the frontage buildings there around that roundabout behind an open space. So that's kind of the makeup of the development. There's 14 total buildings, 6 commercial buildings, 8 total apartment buildings. Building 8 there, like I was alluding to at the roundabout, is a proposal for a vertical mixed use. That adds a lot to the project by adding some mixed use within apartments and residential and commercial. There's 247 total units proposed, 123 one-bedroom, 96 two-bedroom, and 28 three-bedroom. As far as multifamily and the housing goes, there is a proposal for 100% attached, which goes against ordinance standards, which calls for 30% attached. So this would be a modification request. I'll get into that in some of the following slides. One item that the applicants are offering are 16 attainable units. Those will be at 15 years, 80% to 90% AMI. And 6 are available at the 80 and 90% AMI, and the remaining will be at 80 to 100% AMI. So going into some of the asked modifications, requested modifications, the big one there is the 100% attached housing. 30% again is allowed by right in the district. This is the first time we've had a modification of its kind asking for 100% attached. So throughout the process of the review, staff has worked with the applicants on kind of elevating other areas of the plan in order to gain this type of modification. We look at all different kinds of things: urban open space, we look at connectivity, we look at the design of the urban design of the development itself. Those are some of the aspects, and some things we look for is architecture and massing that goes above and beyond ordinance standards. That's something that we're working with the applicants more on to meet some of those architectural standards and massing of some of the buildings. I'll get a little bit into that in some of the next slides. Part of that modification too, apartment buildings currently are allowed to be 36 feet in height. They've asked to allow to go beyond that at 4 stories. Caveat to that is our ordinance doesn't have story height limits in that district. They go with feet, so 36 feet. So we are working with the applicant on giving us a more direct height as far as asking for that request. Another modification request, so along I-77, the town requires a 50-foot undisturbed buffer. That's along the whole I-77 corridor. The applicants, because of the layout of the land and how the natural drainage pattern goes, the SCM, which you see on the screen, the BMP, we used to call that, the stormwater retaining area, that is down near that I-77 buffer. And because of some of the outlets and things they need, they are proposing or requesting to grade into that buffer to not exceed 20 feet and replant in those locations to add the buffer back. Another modification request is apartment building types in the ordinance do not allow side yard parking. It requires all parking to be in the rear of the building, completely screened by the building. They have a few small areas where there is side yard parking. You see the exhibit below. There's a small amount between buildings 1 and 2. There's some more against Statesville Road, but they're pretty small in area, and they've added walls, screening walls, and some vegetation. Staff is in favor of this request. One other request that wasn't spelled out and asked for necessarily on the plans, but is required, block lengths for urban conditions, which this would be, are not to exceed 500 feet. Staff does have the ability to give up to a 30% waiver on block modifications. This particular block A is at 740 feet. But due to some of the urban design that we've asked for in the plan, on-street parking, and some of the curvature in the road and crosswalks with, as you see at the block to the left, there's a crosswalk, elevated crosswalk across Verde Avenue. Some of these items, we're trying to keep a slower urban type speed limit throughout here. So the 740 we believe is doable for this block. Moving into the elevations for the proposal, you see on the screen, this is the commercial elevations where you've got a perceived 2-story on the sides and then 1 story in the middle. What we've been in conversations with the applicant is to add a second occupiable story to some of the commercial buildings. That way you've got some of that massing at the street and it blends into the 3- and 4-story apartment buildings that are proposed. Currently, there's a note on the plan that they will do their best to commercially, if it's feasible, add a second floor to this building. We would like to gain at least a couple of these buildings along the frontages, a second occupiable story. Whether that be commercial, mixed use residential, probably more likely commercial, but that's one of our asks. As far as the multifamily elevations, these currently are, I believe, in 8 of the buildings, this kind of scheme, this architectural scheme. Currently, we're still working with the applicants, but the buildings don't currently meet ordinance requirements for emphasis on pedestrian entryways and elevating those entryways. So there needs to be a little work on the multifamily, knowing these are concept plans. We would like to get a little more accurate on those moving forward. And as you can see, there is a proposed 4-story building here, so that would be one of the modification requests as well. But we would like a little more accurate numbers on how actual tall those can go to a maximum height. On the screen, you see the vertical mixed-use building, that inviting corner there with the open space and the commercial retail spot beneath the multifamily building above. And then another one of their products are carriage homes. This is also multifamily. Those have garages. This particular rendering on the bottom is fronting on an open space. Again, like our the other apartment buildings, we'd like a little more emphasis on the front entries and an inviting frontage that spells out that, hey, this is the front of the building. So moving towards the community plan, you see the area highlighted in red. That's the proposed site. It is in the town core. It is outside, right outside of a mixed-use center, but it is on Statesville Road and Stumptown Road. It does meet LU 2.1, which talks about where the town wants their density. Between I-77 and the 115, that width between there is where the density should be concentrated. This is in that area, so we're leaving the rural outskirts of town as less dense areas. So it does meet LU 2.1. LU 6.2 encourages commercial activity in the core. It also meets that. And then T3 and 3.1 improve connectivity and connections. The applicants have proposed adding onto Maruti Avenue and extending that to Stumptown Road, and then adding Public Street A as they have it currently in the plan. So those are improvements on connectivity, with also having the 10-foot side path along Statesville Road and Stumptown Road and internal sidewalks for connectivity. Also connecting to Norman Lofts to the south, and adding that connection to those apartment buildings. While that is a driveway, it is one more connection into a multifamily use. Currently still working with the applicants to achieve higher design standards, and in this case, it would be possible massing of the commercial buildings, adding a second occupiable story, and also meeting architectural standards for the multifamily buildings, and maybe even going over and beyond those recommended or those required standards of the ordinance. Moving towards recommendations, staff can support this project, again, if we get a little more teeth with how many occupiable stories the commercial buildings will have in them, and then working with the applicants more on some of the architectural design in the multifamily buildings. Still going through some TIA information, but it is reasonable in public interest to approve it with LU 2.1, 6.2, T3, and 3.1 if we can get some of those items that I spoke of placed in this plan. The applicants are here. They have a presentation as well, but if you'd like to ask questions now of me, but I'll be here otherwise.
Commissioner Walsh, questions for staff?
Yeah, just one on the block length, the 740 feet. I think you said I'll have some pedestrian crossings. What about any mini traffic circles or something to slow folks down or
There
create
is,
some?
yeah, so I'll show it on the actual full site plan. So that block length is there at the very bottom of the screen against I-77. Before that, when you actually come onto Maruti, you will enter into a traffic circle, and then you'll curve down, go over a crosswalk that is in front of that open space between buildings 2 and 3. And then that's where that actual block starts after that crosswalk. So it goes from the crosswalk all the way to the edge of the property, but you actually see that curvature in the road.
So when you say the crosswalk,
The crosswalk in between buildings 2 and 3, I believe that is.
yeah, I was going to say, I can't tell where that is.
Is it right in the middle?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm hoping. Okay.
I gotta figure out how to. There we go. That's the
Okay.
crosswalk.
And where's the 740 feet go to?
It would start from here and go all the way to there.
So what about a little mini circle where just to the left of where you end? Something, I don't know.
Another possible way to break up that block would be possibly another crosswalk. I don't really see a need for a circle without a intersecting road.
What's the little road coming in? It looks,
That's a driveway in the Norman Lofts.
okay, I got you.
Here.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a private driveway, and they're proposing to add that connection, but it's not a public street. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good, thanks.
You're welcome.
Other questions for staff? Mayor Pro Tem Hunt?
Yeah, there are some concerns about the road infrastructure where this project is located. Can you talk about the Route 21 road project, please?
So Statesville Road project, you can kind of see that improvement on the screen, but it'll basically mimic what it is at Gilead Road. There'll be, four lanes and a turn lane. The TIA is still in the works, so I can't get into specific details on what was approved or not, but it's basically going to be an NCDOT improvement with wider streets, turn lanes, improvements for pedestrians along the frontage. There's a 10-foot side path along Statesville Road and Stumptown Road. So it'll look drastically different than it does today. It'll be wider and with turn lanes.
Oh.
Mr. Trott?
Yeah.
Sorry. He was.
Probably address that a little more eloquently.
Yes.
Sure. And Stephen, while you're walking up here, I just wanted to add another question. Do we know the date of completion or when they're going to start that project?
Yeah, so we don't have a date of completion yet. I believe it's proposed to be let for construction sometime in 2027. I would guess 3 or 4 years, but that may depend on utilities and many other factors. So, not yet.
Any other questions? Commissioner Bursman?
Yeah, and don't go too far, Stephen. Well, actually, I'll ask my question for you first, since you're already up there. So if the Maruti disconnection happens and you go all the way down to what's already built, there's that little gap that's like a culvert right by the Cats Park and Ride. I am just curious if we have an idea of how feasible it would be to have some kind of pedestrian connectivity there.
Yeah, something that can be evaluated further. The challenge where Maruti stops now is south of there may look like a public street, but it's not a public street. It's a private street through private parcels. So that would all have to be evaluated for either a public street or some kind of pedestrian connection. But there's some topography challenges, lot to look at.
Do you think there are less challenges with the pedestrian, or it's an equal amount?
It's probably less because you're going to have less width to try to accommodate, but less definitely a challenge.
Cool. That's what I was assuming, but I don't like to assume. So that's why I wanted to check. And then I just had one other question. The lofts, that adjacent project, is that 45 units? Okay. Thanks.
Questions for staff? All right, we'll have the applicant.
Applicants, come on up. You know the drill. You got your sweater there.
All right. Good evening. I'm Susan Irvin with Irvin Law Group. Thank you very much, Jesse, for that very thorough presentation. I am going to go through a couple of slides, and then Jason MacArthur with Mission will discuss the actual project. I'm kind of showing where this is on the land use plan, just with a star, to give you some location perspective, where it is, Rosedale and downtown Huntersville. I do think it's on the edge of the mixed-use center. Surrounding this property, as Jesse said, is commercial to the north and south. On the left, 77, on the right, Highway 21. That probably, because there's only one median break or one driveway cut off of 21, is part of the challenge with the block length. This shows a little bit about one of the important things about the location of this project. It really provides, because you've got commercial to the north and the south, what it does is it provides pedestrians for a future and present greenway and bikeway system. This is the 2040 community plan. This is just a magnified version of that. It shows you where the property is relative to all these current and planned greenways, which really provide a pedestrian and a bicycle network to downtown and to Rosedale and to North Meck Park, to the Torrance Creek Greenway, Huntersville Business Park. It really does create a nexus between a lot of these, the Carolina Thread Trail that goes on along 115. So the big idea of the 2040 community plan is to connect 30,000 people to a greenway by 2030. And the great thing about this property location is it provides some of those pedestrians to actually access these present and future greenways. Also, great vehicular transportation options. The rapid transit in downtown, the rapid transit I meant along 77 and the rail line downtown, and all of those also vehicular options. This gives you a little bit better view of the roadway network. I'm going to talk about one more slide before Jason comes up, and that is attainable housing. As Jesse said, and it was a discussion between staff and the applicant, 16 attainable residences between 80 and 100%. That is definitely the highest number of the projects that have been and are being approved. And again, the key thing is this provides a place for the residents to live, and the people that we're talking about living in attainable units are the people, some examples are listed here, firefighters, medical staff, teachers, police officers, social workers, people who are important community members who we want to live in our community as well as work in our community. So this is an important commitment, and it's a great location for that. I'm going to go back to this slide and ask Jason to hop up.
I've never been allowed to drive before. This is a little bit scary. Jason MacArthur with Mission Properties, thank you for the chance to present to you. Just a few things to note about the traffic slide in front of us. We heard tonight that growth's coming. We live in a wonderful state, a wonderful region, and this is a great town. Growth is coming. We've been working, just so you know, for about 6 months to get to the point where we are. These traffic plans have been in the works for 5 years or thereabouts. The only remaining right-of-way to be acquired for this plan to move forward is the right-of-way associated with this property right here. That's how close they are. They're down to one property owner, and we're close to making that deal. I actually think these improvements will start sooner than 27, just based on conversations with DOT. I can't bind DOT, but we think they're coming. They're going to double the capacity of Statesville Road, of Highway 21. They're going to reduce time waiting at that intersection with Stumptown by 50%. That's their projections. We're not to credit or blame for that. That's DOT. That happened long before we were on the scene, and that will happen whether or not you approve our plan. It does present some challenges, though, I would tell you, to our site plan. Our site is bounded by 77 and Highway 21 and Stumptown. It's a narrow site with a significant amount of topography. Because of those traffic improvements that DOT is implementing, we are very constrained where we can access our site. That's an important constraint for everyone to understand. We've been through literally about a dozen iterations of the plan. I know Jesse listed all of the items that are open. I want you to know if you'd done that 3 months ago, you would have been here all night. It would have been a long, long list. We're down to a short list. We've worked well together. Those curb cuts are fixed. They've been approved by DOT. They can't move to the left or to the right. They're the result of significant back and forth and negotiating. That defines a lot of how the site can work. These access points are right in and right out. That's a very safe traffic movement to make, easy to get in, easy to get out. It's not great for commercial. Having said that, we have 45,000 feet of commercial proposed. The commercial village in this slide is on the left-hand side, which is my left, your right, depending on where you're seated. We've always contemplated, just so you know, in our ask for density, that 2 of these buildings would be 2 stories. So when we ask for 40,000 feet, that contemplates 2 of these being 2 stories. We actually have a note asking for permission that we could combine any pair of 2 buildings into one single building. And the reason we asked for that is hoping that we could get a medical office building. To get a medical office building, it would work better with one larger building with a centralized atrium. And so that's built into the ask. Where we've been a little shy is being shackled where we have to deliver that. There's already an Ortho Carolina building just up the road. We're going to go for a medical office user. We feel reasonably confident we can, but we have to plan for the what if. What if we can't? Someone was asking about the timeline for all of this. If you all see fit to approve this in the course of the next several weeks, it's going to take us about a year to complete the working drawings. It will take 2 years to build the apartments. It will take about 3 to finish the commercial village, we think. So we're into 29 before this thing is occupied and usable. Those traffic improvements may not be complete then, but they'll be substantially along the way at that point in time. Let me keep us moving. We've already been here. I'm not going to spend time on this. We're a small local developer. When we first sat down with the planners many, many months ago, many meetings ago, we presented images of what we had in mind, and all I would suggest in looking at these images that most of them have great outdoor spaces to them. Varied architecture, but really compelling outdoor space. We invited the staff to give us sort of guidance on the type of architecture that they preferred. And I think what we heard from staff is we like the placemaking here. We like the outdoor part. If you do that well, there's some flexibility in how you skin the buildings. I'm not going to spend time, for the sake of brevity, telling you about Mission Properties. We're local. We've been in business as Mission for 21 years. I left a giant national footprint developer because I just had a lot of personal investment in the individual projects, and that was really at conflict with the big national footprint developers. So created a small company, frankly, because we care. We care about our community. We care about being excellent. And if you look at our website, I think it supports that. Susan just suggested it might be good for us to briefly show you a project we did very nearby. This is a rendering that was developed for rezoning purposes in Cornelius 3 years or so ago. We've just completed the building. We've just CO'd it. And there's the building. We think it's a very handsome building, and we think we were faithful to what we presented. And we just note that for you to understand you're not dealing with a company where whoever's talking to you today may change tomorrow. We'll be here. We're the principals. We're the decision makers. We're the people you can hold to account. These were just some interior shots of that project. The venue on South Main, I hope you'll agree, it's a lovely project. It's very high quality. Just moving along, we've talked about the site plan. I do want to suggest a number of things that I think the town's getting that are worthwhile. Maruti right now is a road that goes from the nowhere. We will complete Maruti. We will build it at our expense. We'll give the land and the road, once it's built, to the town. It will connect to Stumptown Road. I do think ultimately it's inevitable. It will cross the creek. It just has to. We can't promise you we can make that happen, but I think it just, when you look at it, literally at 30,000 feet, it wants to. It wants to be a road that at some point outlets, at least on the Statesville Road. The Lofts 45 project is 4 stories. Just south of us is a 4-story hotel. And so our project consists of both 2, 3, and 4-story buildings. We chose with, again, working in collaboration with the planning department, to put the larger buildings not up on Statesville, but on Maruti, because it's really well nested from the 2 major roads, and not many people are going to see that unless they're interior to the project. And so that's how we came up with the plan that we did. I would also note the pedestrian block we were talking about where the pedestrian crossing is on Maruti, it exists because we can't get a second curb cut. It really wasn't practical. DOT wouldn't let us have another formal block. We couldn't have a through block there. And so we've created this road with some curvature to manage speed, the speed table and the roundabout elements. We are certainly open to feedback on ways to improve this road. I would note it's tree-lined, it has sidewalks on both sides and on-street parking, which should make it an appealing place both to drive but also to walk and to bike. Just moving on, just rendered images. What's circled is where the images are focusing. So this commercial village, it has a couple different styles. It has pitched roof buildings. It has those because the pitched roof buildings relate well to the architecture of the mixed use and residential on the other side of the roundabout. You'll also note in some of those images flat roof buildings. You'll note, again, there is 2 stories shown. We would love to do 2 stories. We've asked for it all along. We're just guarded and guaranteeing you that we can force the market to have a medical office use, and we're not sure that the kinds of retail uses that go on the second story would be, frankly, a benefit to the community or desirable. So we just want the flexibility. We'll continue to work this out with staff, but where we will make good faith efforts to deliver that 2-story building, if in the course of 3 years of marketing and leasing we haven't found users, we want the ability to finish the project and to build a 1-story building. We've even offered to mass it, as you see, with the massing that really mimics 2 stories. Just another perspective of the commercial. Moving on for the sake of time. Looking here, this circle shows us an image from the roundabout. Both sides of this roundabout are activated with outdoor spaces, gathering opportunities. The commercial village is one that we think would have a mixture of uses. It's 40,000 feet approximately, so that might end up being, think of that as 20 stores of some variety. Those would be restaurants, those would be shops, potentially a dentist, a pediatrician, so on and so forth. There, the outdoor spaces at that intersection we think are going to make for a nice experience for people walking around the roundabout, but also people driving through the roundabout. Here's an image looking in a southerly direction from the roundabout at the mixed-use building. There's an opportunity for about 3 shops there. I could certainly imagine the residents themselves supporting a coffee shop, outdoor seating associated with the coffee shops, a graffiti wall is part of that, as you can see. Conceived. Another image, this is looking north towards the roundabout and towards the commercial mixed-use village. Quickly to wrap things up, to the south are the larger format buildings. Again, they're the most nested of the project, internalized, screened with buffering and other large format buildings. Here's that throughway. We think this will be a nice element of the project. We think it will hopefully draw people who would be walking along Statesville into our project to a more scenic and quiet bucolic walk along Maruti. The carriage buildings, just again, another format, another housing option to bring down scale, to make it more residential in concept and more relatable to pedestrians. I think, Susan, are you going to chat a little bit at the end, just press on the benefits?
Just so you understand kind of the difference, this tax at build-out, this is taxes to Huntersville. This is not just the entire county amount. This is the amount that would be paid per year to Huntersville by this project versus what's being paid now. The construction benefits, construction job creation, and permanent job creation. So this gives you some ideas of the economic benefits. And just to summarize, the project benefits, attainable housing is at the top, pedestrian and vehicular connectivity, and downtown activation. Obviously complies with community plan, and the economic benefits, the NCDOT roadway improvements that are going in. So just wanted to end with that summary, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt.
I'd like some additional information about the attainable and affordable housing rental units. And so I really appreciate the explanations you provided and who would qualify and how those income numbers were determined. Who oversees the application process and how would one apply?
So that is a programming, issue. We have done already with the town of Huntersville on Town 1. So we work up an affordable housing program, and that's something that goes through the town, and we work on having a management group do that. So that could be internal. Usually it's not. And that would really be a decision that Jason and his team would make. I know you have attainable units in other projects, so you could probably answer how you do that.
We have done attainable housing in other states and in Asheville, here in North Carolina, and Charleston and Jupiter, Florida. Generally, what we've seen is there's an annual report that's due in January summarizing the prior year and demonstrating compliance. That's how it's been done for us and past communities. This is a 15-year offer, just to be clear. Those 16 affordable units, someone making 80% of AMI today, that number is $59,400. If you're earning that, your rent discount here is $300 to $400 to $500 a month, depending on the floor plan. It's significant. It's a big benefit to librarians and government workers and all the people on that list. And that will go on for a 15-year period of time. And we hope that others, in the course of 15 years, will of course join suit, and there'll be a bigger inventory. But it's what we can do. It's a heavy lift. I'll just tell you that. 16 is a big commitment. We were pushed to that by staff. We didn't start there. That's when I started crying, and they understood they'd broken me. So 16 is what we can do.
I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Commissioner Dumas?
For the other units, like you have an assortment, a wide assortment. Can you give us a range of what those would cost?
I will give you my best guess. The reason I frame it as a guess is I'm predicting the future. I'm predicting the year 2029. If I can do it in today's dollars, that'd be more helpful. A two-bedroom, well, let me start with ones. Ones would likely be in the $1,500 to $1,800 range. There's some overlap with twos. Twos might be right at $1,800 to $2,000, and three bedrooms are probably cresting $2,200 a month in today's dollars. And I have to tell you, it hurts me to say that, but that's just what it costs to build housing today.
Okay. Commissioner Quarles?
Mine is more of a comment, and I'm glad we're on this screen. Thank you so much for using the word attainable housing, and thank you for having examples of the type of residents that will live in attainable housing. We get quite a few comments about affordable housing. Same concept, same purpose, but just the explanation of attainable, it brings value, it gives us a better understanding, because our police and fire, teachers, they deserve to live in a good community such as Huntersville. And I want to compliment you on that. And thank you also, because you guys know I always speak about economic benefits. So thank you so much again for that slide, because I think that also brings value to what projects like this would do to us to help us offset our taxes.
Commissioner Walsh?
First of all, I want to thank you for your commitment to attainable housing and those 16 units. Important to us as a board and the town as a whole. I know that Jesse and you have both spoken about, this two-story, I don't think we have to solve that tonight, but before this is approved, if it is approved, we need to get that button down. The other thing is, you are asking for 100% attached. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can from an architectural standpoint. I know when I look back at that, the multifamily, I know I've talked to staff about this, but maybe breaking up that roof line a little bit, the carriage homes, I think I heard some comment about the way they looked in the back type of thing. So we're really trying to push hard to make, and I've seen your other projects. I'm not beating you up on that, but I just really, encourage you to work with staff to make sure we get those things buttoned down.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, Commissioner Person.
Yeah, thanks. And I don't know if I missed it or if you mentioned, do you have what the height would be on the tallest of the apartment buildings?
I can give you an approximation. 48 feet is a pretty good guess. One of the things that we've done, and again, I'm sensitive to comments about sympathetic really to varying the roof line. The architecture specifically shows hipped roofs. The reason that we did that is because you don't have a giant gable that's increasing that verticality right at the pedestrian edge. The other way, sorry. So we've tried to reduce the sense of mass by having these, so there's an example of a gabled roof in the bottom right, where that vertical plane just is sort of staring down at you. Our buildings here, what we've proposed, the condensers would live on the roofs, but on the multifamily buildings, what you'll note, generally to try to conceal some of the mass, what's going to arrest the eye is that soffit, that eave there. That's not 48 feet. That's much closer to that 36-foot dimension. That's probably right at 40 feet. The roof, because of the pitch and the pedestrian relationship to it, you're never going to see it. You're going to see it if you're in a helicopter. You're going to see it from a great distance, but you will not experience the roof itself if you're walking along Marudi, by way of example. What you will experience is the eave line. That's about 40 feet, so it's not far beyond that 36. And it's not all buildings.
Thanks. And have you thought about it all? Because this is a multiple building project, and as others have said, I'm glad you're committed to attainable housing. Where the 16 units would be located, if you're thinking they're all going to be in one of the buildings, or if you're going to spread them throughout?
We would spread them throughout the building. That's the best way to do it.
Okay.
Spread them out.
Great. Just wanted to make sure. And this is probably more of a comment. I mean, I'll be honest, going from 30% to 100%, that's a big jump. I am a little curious why you didn't decide to go with a bit more of housing diversity, maybe incorporate townhouses or duplexes into the project instead of entirely multifamily.
Fair question. I will say our early conversations, we didn't get the sense that staff, maybe I misunderstood, viewed it as a big ask. It was an ask, and what you needed were reasons, and the road extension, the affordable housing, the new services, the mixture of uses, the high-quality placemaking. We thought those were enough. In terms of doing townhomes here, carriage homes in our mind are a surrogate for that. There are 4 carriage home buildings on campus. Those are 2-story buildings. Same mass as a townhome, same general size. They just happen to be flats rather than stacked products.
Commissioner Dumas?
Why a medical building? I gotta admit, that doesn't I feel like we have a lot of them, and we need them. And I haven't done any research to determine whether or not we need more. So I'm just curious, why a medical building?
Because it's viable for a second-story use. That's why. For traditional retail, it's hard to find a mix of users that can survive on the second floor. You don't see very many retail projects with 2 stories. They're generally 1 level. For 2 stories, the quality of tenant does not diminish in medical office. You can have a dermatologist on the second floor, and you're no less likely to go because they're on the second floor. It's a little different. You don't see in these situations with retail that have to have an outdoor catwalk and then an elevator to get there. It's just not as convenient as a big part of it. And so what we tend to see are computer fix-it stores upstairs, kids' gyms, theater space for the local YMCA, which may be viable. We're not against those things per se. We just can't, again, guarantee we can't compel users and prospective businesses to occupy the second floor. They have to want to.
Going back to the attainable housing, this is a hot topic, are you right? 16, that is an amazing number. That is the highest number that we have seen. I know you said that initially that was not your number. What was the initial number, and how did you get to just 16?
Well, the initial offer was 10. People don't like to talk about the economics of the project, but since you ask, I have to give you an honest answer. We understand, I'm not personally writing the check to build this. I am the seed capital. We have to, my partner and I raise with investors monies for this. They're profit-motivated investors. Again, we can't compel them to invest. We have to be able to present an economic thesis that's compelling. That rent discount, just so you understand how that translates and impacts the value of the building with 16 units at $400 a month, that's $6,400 a month. If you look at that over 12 months, that's $84,000 a year of lost income. That devalues the building by about $1.6 million. That's just the limit of what we can give back, so to speak, and still entice investors. That's just the honest answer. If it goes any thinner than that, we will fall on our face. That's just the honest truth.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, thank you. We have
Thank
one
you.
public comment. June Overcash. You have 3 minutes.
My name is June Overcash. I'm one of the owners of the land. I'm a lifelong resident here in Huntersville. I'm retired from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. I worked at North Meck and Bradley, and I retired from Bailey Middle. I also have 2 sons. One's a retired police officer, and the other one left being a police officer to work for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. And my daughter works here at Exit 23. She's a branch manager at Juliant Credit Union. So my family still lives and works in Huntersville. This property that we're talking about was my grandfather's homestead place, where 4 consecutive generations have lived and farmed this land. We've talked to many developers who wanted to buy this property. First of all, none of the builders wanted to put any commercial there, and the projects that they thought would work were not of high quality as Mission's properties are. Jason and his team has great reputation, and they've done wonderful and special projects in the Charlotte area. This project he proposes is the only one we've seen with such high quality design that includes commercial and residential that will really work together. We love the outdoor spaces and how the project connects to downtown and the greenways and the parks in our community. We appreciate that so many first responders, school employees, just like my sons and myself, will be able to afford to live here and access all the great walkways, greenways to get to the destinations in Huntersville. This will work so well with the plans that you have currently for downtown, and this project can tie into that perfectly. We truly believe that this is the absolute best possible outcome for this property, and we hope you will approve it. And we really appreciate your service and consideration.
And do we have any members of the planning board here that, you don't have any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, we are on to item 9C. Conduct a public hearing on petition R24-15, a request by Station South LLC.
Yeah, and R2415 Station South, please enter my staff report into the record. Has anybody wondered how long I'm going to keep that pink dot on the screen? See if I can get rid of that. There we go. I learned all that just tonight.
Good job.
All right, so the request. So the current state of this site is single-family, residential and vacant. The proposed district would be corporate business, the current zone is corporate business conditional district. You can see that on the hatch mark there on the screen on the zoning map. And you see corporate business around it to the east and south, traditional neighborhood development to the north, and neighborhood residential to the west. The proposed development is mixed-use apartments, townhomes, and commercial, and quite a bit of vertical mixed use as well. And they are proposing that to be transit-oriented development, residential conditional district. So a little bit about what's around the area. As you can see in the context map on the screen, to the north you've got Caldwell Crossing. That's commercial and residential. I think it's mostly apartments. Calamar Senior Apartments there across. 115 is senior apartments. Caldwell Station Apartments, and Charter Caldwell Station, more multifamily. So the proposed site, there as you see on the screen, shows more multifamily and townhomes, but also a pedestrian village format centered around the proposed Red Line station there at the bottom of the screen is the proposed station site. North of that site, you'll see, and now that I know how to do this, you'll see a parking deck here that would service the station. And around that station, you'll see vertical mixed use. You've got apartments with ground floor retail, an urban open space within that center, and then you also have some commercial buildings as well. So this is why they're going for TOD, because of the proposed red line station. Is there a better way to, can we just clear it? Yeah, clear. Okay, so what we've got are 20 buildings, 2 commercial, 8 apartment buildings, and 2 vertical mixed use with some vertical mixed use on the parking deck as well. We've got townhomes on the northern part, or actually that would be the western part of the development, but on your screen it is the top portion of the development. And those total 348 residential units, 278 apartments, 6 mixed-use townhomes, those are the ones at the parking deck, and then 64 townhomes. This project is offering 4 attainable units, 15 years, 2 at 80% AMI. We request more information on what those other 2 may be, whether it's a mix of 80 to 100 or 90 to 100. So we'd like to a little more clear expectation of what those may be. And then I'm going to get into some of the modification requests from the ordinance requirements. But first, let's talk a little bit about the phasing plan. On the screen, you see the site plan with shades of the areas that will be developed first, with phase 1A composing of the multifamily units, with some of the vertical mixed use along the edge where you see the public street in phase 2. And then phase 1B would be the townhomes across Siegel Street extension there. And then the phase 2 would be the actual second part of the pedestrian village with the parking deck. One thing that staff would like a better understanding is if and when the red line station does get approved, when will that phase 2 come online? Because that does actually build out the TOD as a whole. Without it, it's multifamily. So we'd like to get a little better expectation of when that full village would be built out. And then I'm also going to get into option B of this plan if funding does not occur for the red line. And that is what you see on the screen here. So because of the nature of this plan, in November of this year, there is a vote for funding for the red line project. The rail itself is already obtained by CATS. However, as we all know, a project of this magnitude costs a lot of money. So the funding will come up for vote in November. What the applicants would like the option of is, without coming back to the board, having the option of doing this option B plan. And that is it's not a modification request, it's just a built-in option to allow that if the funding does not happen in November. This is kind of a close-up of the difference of those plans. On the left, you see option A. That's the one I spoke of earlier with the parking deck right above the rail station, the red light district rail station. Option B, because that funding would not happen, that partnership with CATS would not happen at this moment, the option would be for that to be parking, and buildings 9 and 10, where you see above the station in option A, would then be there at the public street, where those retail frontages would be there along that public street and the urban open space and the vertical mixed use. Vertical mixed use would still be part of option B, but that's the main layout difference of the 2 plans, and it all has to do with funding of the red line station. So moving into the modification, and these would be for both option A or B, there's a small request for a block modification, and that is along Siegel Street. Technically, they're within staff's ability to allow a waiver, but because of the urban nature of 250 to 500 feet for a block length, we're still asking for an approval with modification request. Staff recommends approval. It is a minor thoroughfare. It's an extension of Siegel Street. There's on-street parking, curvature in the road, and crosswalks that maintain keeping that speed limit down. They've asked for only one row of street trees along Siegel Street. The ordinance requires a double row of street trees, but this kind of mimics a town setting, a downtown setting. So a double row would kind of take away from the urban design of having the buildings closer to the street. So they've asked to only have one row of trees within tree grates or wells. We think this is good urban design. They've also asked for side yard parking. They're minimal, and again, staff would require a screening wall or added shrubbery to screen those small areas of side yard parking. One part of a TOD is FAR requirements. So FAR, floor area ratio, it really digs into how much building area is on a lot itself and not a lot of wasted space. So it's trying to gain density and not just open land area. Because of the nature of this plan, as you can see in Lot 1, if you look at option A, it's that whole quadrant there on the left. That's one lot, and buildings 9 and 10 is one floor, and then you've also got the parking deck. So there's a lot of just open floor area that's not separate units. So it does bring that floor area ratio down. The applicants have requested to give some relief to the FAR in that area, which is required at 0.35. Staff is generally okay with that. However, similar to the last proposed development we just heard, staff would like to speak more with the applicants on the possibility of having an occupiable building 9 and 10, a second occupiable floor for those buildings. That would improve the FAR numbers and would also give that massing that a TOD development would offer. The last modification request, part of TOD-R talks about how many units are within a half-mile catchment area of a transit stop. And it talks about 250 dwelling units for every 10,000 square feet. This request, it hasn't been requested of in the plans. It happened through review. This is actually 348 units. So it goes over the 250 dwelling units with the 10,000 square feet. However, because of the amount of residential in that area, staff believes that that commercial area would benefit this area of town more without having a lot of commercial area. So we're okay with allowing more commercial square footage with the ratio of residential. So we recommend that approval. And yeah, I was going to show this screen again that shows the amount of multifamily in and around the proposed TOD station.
Just as a point of clarification on this, for the November, the state still has to put the 1 cent sales tax on, past legislation for that to even happen. So back that up just a little. This is assuming that gets done, then we have the option A, option B, okay? Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
So moving along to the architecture. On the screen, what you see is the vertical mixed use that's within that, that pedestrian village area that has the mixed use. And you've got retail there along the ground floors and then multifamily above that. Staff has asked and will continue to with the applicants to give possibly the architecture more of an urban modern design, since this is a density district with TOD. It's just an ask. It may give it more of a feel of a modern transit-oriented development. Otherwise, we do appreciate the vertical mixed use component along that village that you see on that first floor. These are the 3-story apartments. Again, it's a similar design, and we'd have some similar asks of this building as well. And then these are the commercial buildings in Building 9 and 10. They are also 1-story. They have a perceived 2nd story. We would ask for an exploration of a possible 2nd floor if that is feasible. We are still looking for elevations for the townhomes in that blue area to the west, and also the parking deck. I know these are a little more hard to ask since the parking deck is part of the funding, but kind of an idea of what that could look like, as well as the clubhouse, that red area in the middle. That is the center of the TOD in that village area between that purple and red area. Moving towards the community plan, this is in a mixed-use center. You see that hatched area in the middle with the red outlining the proposed development. It does meet the future land use plan of adding density to that mixed-use center and vertical mixed use. Adds intensity around a transportation infrastructure. We all hope that vote goes and the TOD or the station is approved so that we can have that TOD station there within that mixed-use center. Mixes land uses and encourage mixed-use centers with that in that mixed-use center. LU 7.1 follow design principles. So this adds connectivity. It adds the extension of Siegel Street, 10-foot side paths, architecture that's up to the street. LU 8.1, emphasis on form and flexibility. Part of what TOD offers is flexibility on parking. So within a TOD, there's less requirements for parking, less surface parking area. There is slightly less parking in some of the residential areas because of this. LU 8.3, encourage transit-supported development. This obviously does that. Connects mixed-use centers with transit, T1.2, and T1.3, encourage transit-supported developments within mixed-use centers to expand existing bus routes. We think there's an opportunity there to also add bus routes to this dense area. So there's a lot of emphasis on transportation here and supporting mixed-use centers with transit. So staff does recommend the project because of those reasons, and we do request approval for the modification request that I did go over. We think this is consistent with the land use plan and the 2040 plan, and is and the development pattern set forth within it. The applicants are here for, they have a presentation as well, but I'm here for any questions.
Commissioner Walsh?
Just one quick one, Jesse, and you don't have to go back to the slide, but you had that slide with the 3 phases, and I was trying to listen. Were you suggesting that there's a possibility phase 1 is only residential or multifamily? And that, and you wanted some tie-in to
Phase 1A, as you see on the screen, is mostly multifamily. They're on the edge that's closest to phase 2. You see, you actually have some vertical mixed use. So this dark.
Starting to get good with that, by the way. I'm impressed.
No, I had to clear it right away too afterward. So these 2 areas are actually vertical mixed use. So there's commercial within that. Phase 2 to the left is the only just commercial with some small vertical mixed use with the parking deck.
And was there some concern about when phase 2 would happen, or?
Yeah, so there's not any language in the plans about if the red line is funded, at what point that commercial node or phase 2 would come online. And I know it's not something that they can guarantee, but phase 2 does help really support the TOD portion of the plan. So, and that's the ask for the zoning designation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right. The applicant is here.
There.
Okay.
Come on up.
So, first off, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate you having me here. Brad, Jesse, Brian, Steven, everyone that's worked on this, obviously couldn't have done it without a group effort. So I really appreciate that. And if you'll give me 10 seconds, I'd like to say to my wife who's watching, I know this meeting started with the potty training of our son. I promise that wasn't planned. And on the record, I just, don't get mad at me. This is how it worked out. So with that said, my name is Michael Cox. I represent the developer. I'm one of the owners of Peak Development. A couple of my other business partners are here. We worked with the Irvin Law Group as our legal team, and then WA Engineering as our civil. This is just part of our team. Skip over this. We are a local developer. We're from Charlotte. Combined experience, we've done over 1,500 multifamily units, 350 townhomes, about 1 million square feet of retail. So very familiar with this product type, lots of experience with it and placemaking and planning, and really excited about kind of what we have here. To provide you where you're at, 73 is obviously going east to west here. Take a left onto 115, and as Jesse mentioned, we are parcel 1 and 2 right there. So I'm going to briefly turn it over to Cindy, and then I will be right back with you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Reed with the Urban Law Group. So I just wanted to go over how this plan meets the 2040 Community Plan goals, because Jesse did a great job of telling you how it meets the policies. So I thought, well, I'm going to tell you how it meets the goals. And it hits on all the goals. As Jesse said, it's it's a mixed-use center, and it's a mixed-use center, and we have activity, and I think that's really important to surrounding a transit station, to have that type of activity that the community wants to come to, and that the neighbors who live in that neighborhood will enjoy. So we have a portion of the Mooresville to Charlotte Trail. It's really important because that's a real important section of the Carolina Thread Trail. It runs right along 115. And again, future trail access, and there are walking trails throughout this development. There's a big open lawn with a central pavilion for events to attract all the community. So this is going to be a destination, a landing point for the rail, for people who are using that rail, and also a walkable community for the folks who live there. Again, this is a TOD development, and so the plan provides transportation. I mean, this is an important aspect of this plan, that it has the Red Line station located on it. And it's also an extension of Siegel Street north-south connection. And again, the plan provides the growth management because it is concentrating your high density around the rail station, which is exactly what the land use plan is calling for, to put density in that area and to put activity in that area. It also plans for economic development. There are small businesses, and entrepreneurship can strive with that steady customer base that comes from the density surrounding this, because you have to have density built in order for these businesses and these restaurants to succeed, and there are businesses that are lining the public space. The plan obviously provides greenways and trails because it's providing that Mooresville to Charlotte Trail, part of the Carolina Thread Trail running along 115, and walking trails and bike trails throughout the development. It provides housing choices with townhomes, with multifamily, and also with attainable housing. So there'll be different choices in this walkable community. And the open space, you can look at that and see how much open space it's trying to provide, and it is providing. But I won't read you all those numbers, but again, there's that central public plaza, and there's some different commercial plaza areas. And in a discussion with one of you, I think that we mentioned that this could provide some relief to Burkdale by giving another place for people to go and another central pavilion, and walkable retail. But I would be remiss not to really emphasize this red line again, because, this red line it'll be nice for Davidson, it'll be nice for Cornelius, but it's a game changer for Huntersville. The red line, this shows you all the stations that have already been approved by CATS. And then this project is located, as shown by the star, and it's right in the center of that red line station. So there are 10 stations and 25 miles of track serving 5 municipalities in 2 counties. So again, a game changer, and I think it's really cool that it's on this site. And then Michael has worked so closely with CATS to make sure that it's going to be what it needs to be. And let's not forget the economic benefits. So the current property tax is pretty low. It's only $9,000, but at future build-out, it'll be $180,000 plus per year. And again, that's for Huntersville. That goes directly to Huntersville. And then the construction benefits, you can see that they're over $80 million, and the construction job creation is 388 jobs. And we always like to present this slide because I think it's important to show your citizens that we're approving new development, but it also lessens the pressure on you to increase taxes. So it helps keep your tax base more neutral. And anyway, I appreciate your listening to us, and I'm going to turn this back over to Michael to go over some of the specifics of the plan.
So
Susan left something
that's
up
mine.
here.
Yeah, that's all mine. So this slide here is the bubble diagram pulled directly from the town of Huntersville's TODR ordinance. And so what I'd like to point out here is, as you'll see, there's a transit corridor, there's a stop. Right outside of the stop, in your plans, you show a big open space. From there, you have your highest density mixed use surrounding the large open space, your parking kind of to the side. You then step down in density to your apartments, and then, of course, in the back is townhomes and recreational open space. What I hope you'll realize by the end of this is we tried in a collaboration effort basically just make our plan exactly what I think you want, which is obviously what's in your ordinance. So I think you'll see it looks pretty similar by the end. So starting with our site, what we did from the beginning is said, okay, what are the constraints of it, right? We know 115 is on the southern border of this plan that you see. There's obviously a railroad track there. We know that the Mooresville to Charlotte Trail will go and run in parallel with the rail. We know there's a transit stop with the red line. And then we know that the circulation in the minor thoroughfare, which is Siegel Street, that's supposed to alleviate traffic, we're going to build out and donate to the town. Now, my friend Dan Mays is here. He'll admit that he has no interest in selling, but if he ever changes his mind, that will, of course, go up to Mays Road. That'll go down to Sam Fur if the developer south of us works it out and hopefully alleviate 115. So we know those are our constraints as we look at this. So in bubble diagramming ourselves, we just started to mirror what you already have in your ordinance. Where's the transit station? Okay, great. Let's add in the public realm. Let's add in the greatest density, the mixed use. Let's then drop it down to the multifamily garden garden apartments. And then outside of Siegel Street, let's drop it down to townhouses. We continued to refine this plan, started adding different nodes, different open spaces, right? How do you interconnect it all? How do you make it feel inviting and not like just a development where if you live there, it's for you, but otherwise it's not for the community? And so what we really tried to do was kind of circle as many open spaces as we could throughout the development, in between buildings, in between townhomes, and then ultimately knowing that we have to try to connect all this and make sure that not only the people that live here, but the folks that are riding the red line, as well as the local residents, feel invited, feel welcomed, and know this is a place that they can go. From here, what you'll see is just what I said, adding in those greenways, adding in those parks to the open space, really large pedestrian-friendly sidewalks, going throughout the different development, different pockets of places where you can sit and park benches and everything else. So ultimately, this slide is just representing, again, your zoning ordinance. We said, okay, let's print 100% of the ordinance out. Let's put a checklist by every single thing. If we can hit 100% of what they're looking for, well then, we know that we have a project that's in line with the 2040 plan. So this is just showing you that. Ultimately, you get to what is our site here. So as you'll see, the Red Line Station, the platform itself is in the bottom left-hand corner. The Mooresville to Charlotte Greenway Trail is a really wide trail there, it's about 12 feet wide. You come off the station through some really large accesses there, you kind of get pulled into development, a really large center core area with a band pavilion that we hope to activate. The red kind of in the apartment buildings is the vertical mixed use, and so what you see here is we've tried to create kind of a center nucleus, if you will, where everyone can hang out, eat, sit in the park, relax, walk around, and then as mentioned, you kind of step into the development as you get away from it. But of course, these pedestrian pathways are littered throughout. Parks, gazebos, kind of in the top side, on the right side. Again, just hoping that it is a place for the community and not just the residents. To show you kind of a rendering here, this is obviously if you're kind of sitting towards where the red line stop would be, looking into the center area. You'll see the kind of large center park there. What is not totally depicted here is in front of that clubhouse, that building on the right side of the park, what we've done there is we've, through collaboration with planning staff, figured out that if we can put bollards here and on the weekends can activate, we can actually increase the size of the park, whether it's through events or something else. So if people come, they get off the red line, the weekends, we can make the park bigger, give more space for pedestrians, give more space to hang out. And so we really like that kind of optionality of that road ebbing and flowing based on kind of what's going on in the area. This is just a view of kind of the pedestrian pathway, the landscaping. Again, the hope here is that you think it's nice, that we're walking through, we're looking at the commercial building, it's inviting. I know we're probably gonna talk about the two-story buildings here. We did try to do our best here in making sure that it has some scale. Happy to talk about the difficulties with two-story retail, similar to how Jason did, but we wanted to make sure that for whatever we could do, we did do on the scale of the commercial. Last but not least, this is looking kind of from that commercial, the park's on your right side, at the ground floor retail there. So mixed use on the bottom, looking at the pedestrian trail, you're kind of looking, I guess, east, but towards the townhomes in the back. So that is all from a presentation. Of course, happy to answer any questions or go to any specific slide to talk through anything.
Commissioner Rivers.
Good evening. How are you? Are you able to give me maybe an estimate or an exact number of the multifamily units proposed?
278.
278, and then the townhomes, that's included in that? Okay, how many?
64.
64.
And then there are 6 vertically integrated. So you'll see with the parking deck, do you see the kind of 6 units that line that?
Mm.
We're talking about a vertically integrated mixed-use townhome there, in part because what we don't want to do in working with CATS is if there's just a 4-story, let's say, parking structure there, we don't want everyone in the park just kind of looking into a parking deck. And so what we've tried really hard is, okay, how can we line this with something, whether it's artwork, whether it's a townhome, whether it's ground floor retail, to try to make it feel like you've gone somewhere versus you're staring into a parking deck. So that's where those last couple units come from.
Okay, and then the attainable housing units, you said 4?
4, I think I've mentioned on a couple calls, for us, every day that we try to get further down the road with our pricing and everything else, we just see what we can add. So we're at 4, we're ready to make a commitment to 5, hopefully that goes up. For the ones that we have, we know that 2 are at 80% AMI, 3 at this point are between 80 and 100.
Okay.
Hopefully we can continue to improve on that.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it for me for right now. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And what about residential on top instead of business? Is that something we can do? Right? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is, so our original plan didn't have any vertical mixed use. What is very difficult at this point in time is vertically integrating mixed use in places that you're unsure about what the demand is going to be for retail. If this was in, say, South End Charlotte, obviously, it's really easy to think about vertically mixed use because the people are there, the demand's there. Best case on the red line, right? I think y'all probably have a better idea than me. Maybe it's 2035. We know today that for every square footage of vertical mixed use we add, it actually hurts our chances of the economic viability of the project. So we are committed because we want to make sure that we're thinking about 5, 10, 15, 20 years, people enjoying this. And so we're doing as much as we think we can without trying to strap our project to a point where it just never gets built. So I would have concerns that if you added residential above that commercial that's standalone there, that you're setting yourself up for some trouble. It's just my personal opinion.
I should have asked this with the last project, but I saw it on one of your slides, so it just triggered this question. Both projects have said that the attainable housing units would be available for 15 years. Is that how I understand that right? What happens at the end of 15? Is it possible that like somebody who's in one of those attainable units would have their rent spiked?
It's a good question. I have not personally been in that situation. Cindy, do you know how that works?
So at the end of the 15 years, the apartments go back to market rate.
So
So they are apartments. So they're 15-year deed restricted apartments.
So it wouldn't, for somebody who's currently living there, it wouldn't remain that? It could potentially make it so they'd have to move?
Well, whoever's there at the end of their lease, they would get to stay till the end of their lease if they're at that 15th year, but at the 15th year, the apartment would convert to market rate.
And if I may.
I also think I just misspoke. They're not going to be deed restricted. They're going to be, as Susan described with Mission, it's through a program that we work with the town. And I have a lot of experience with that because I was the Affordable Housing Director for Davidson for 15 years. So I am happy to work on a plan. I know what I'm doing, so I'll be part of that affordable housing plan.
And the last thing I'll say about that is, I think it's obviously working on some standard kind of documents for obtainable housing. For us, if we can make it work, right, we'd like to make it work. So if that means that we can commit to forever, I'm 100% ready and willing to do that. Just have to figure out what's that look like, what can we do to put that in restrictions, things like that. So all for thinking through any ideas along something like that.
Okay. My last question is just your thoughts on what the price, like again, you have a mix of residencies here. What is your price range that you expect for these?
Somewhere between, and I'm sorry, I don't have like our built out square footages. And so if it's okay, I'm going to speak in price per square foot. I mean, somewhere between, I'm going to give you a big range, I know. If we were opening today, these would be priced somewhere between $1.90 and probably $2.20 a square foot. Which, if you do the back of the napkin math on what Jason was saying, it's probably a similar price point to where he was at.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, just one thing. Again, I know that Jesse had spoken about, I think he called it urban modern design, but that breaking up roof lines, I just encourage you, I know you're working with staff, I know there's been several iterations, but I would just strongly encourage you to continue to work with them to achieve those goals.
Absolutely. So we're working with Klein Design, which is an architecture firm. You might be familiar, you might not. We were hoping to have something by this meeting, just time kind of gets short, right? And so we will certainly have updated renderings, elevations, plans, floor planning. We'll get to them as soon as we can. But yes, we are actively working on that and look forward to hopefully presenting something that's exciting.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt?
I have a question for staff. Sorry, just thought of it. So this project and the previous project both had multifamily. Can you tell us the percentage of multifamily homes we have in Huntersville? I think the number I heard last was like 17%,
I'm gonna have to ask
but I'm sure that's not up to date.
Brian to possibly help.
Yeah, that's a good question, and we're getting a study done right now to confirm everything, but right now it's about 75 or 80% single family, about 20% multifamily, which is a good balance. You have to also remember we've got a lot of entitlements too, so I'm trying to figure out all that in as to what will be built over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's about 80-20, single family to multifamily.
Do you know comparable numbers for like Cornelius and Davidson, just for context?
We have the lowest percentage in Mecklenburg County of multifamily homes. So recently we have a little bump in the market. So we're getting closer on par with everybody else, but we're still have the lowest percentage multifamily of all our surrounding communities.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Commissioner Bergman?
Hey, good evening. And yes, it's definitely evening. It's getting late.
I missed bedtime, so I got 2 strikes on me right
Well,
now.
is that a good thing? Should we keep you longer?
Yeah, hey, listen, at this point, that's true.
So one of the questions that I've got is kind of when looking at that area with like that plaza, the band shell, I think it was described on the site plan. And I know with transit oriented, I mean, I feel like there definitely should be a big focus on walkability, which you've mentioned, and also pedestrian safety. And I guess one of the concerns that I've got when all the parking spaces that are also around that area, I mean, what do you have planned in terms of making that a truly walkable, pedestrian-safe part of the project?
Great question. And yes, obviously, pedestrian safety is of the utmost importance. So at start, right, what we have are really large pedestrian sidewalks. I know at this scale, they obviously can kind of get lost and almost look like lines, but to give you a kind of a point of reference, the one that is coming off the Red Line Station platform beside the apartment, kind of directly into the park, that's a 12-foot wide sidewalk. So, really big spaces for pedestrians to walk, landscape buffers around everything, kind of like how you see here, right? So once they're on the sidewalk, they're there, they're in a large space, they're safe. Hopefully the landscaping is obviously deterrent, things like that. There will obviously be a crosswalk and any striping necessary to make sure that there's designated places to cross. So hopefully it's not a free for all right around the park. So yeah, great question. That's probably what I got. But if you have any other ideas, all ears.
Well, yeah, I see it on the concepts. I mean, are you committed to, because I know another way is using mixed materials. So where either through paint or through, surface materials. So is that something that you're definitely committed to, like in the crosswalk areas and?
It is. We know that between concrete, maybe different pavers, different paints, different landscape areas, we want to make sure that this doesn't just feel like a kind of concrete jungle around it. And we want to make sure that you're transitioning from different places. So yes, don't know exactly kind of how you stand today in square footage of different types, but yes, that is the intent.
Okay. And I lost my train of thought. So go to one of my other questions, but I remember what the one was and find it here. But public art, are you planning, so like the previous presentation, they mentioned a mural on the wall and things like that. Do you already have plans for a public art component through sculptures, murals?
I don't, but I love the idea, and if there's opportunities and walls here, I mean, I'd love to engage the Huntersville scene. My business partners, I own a small restaurant called Fat Burrito, and one of the things we did was engage the Charlotte art scene, come in, gave them different spaces, allowed them to sell art within our restaurant. I know that's completely unrelated to this, but the point I'm making is if we could engage and there's opportunities to do that, whether it's with commercial spaces or anything else, I'm all for it.
Well, I'll put a plug in because if you've ever taken a walk on our greenway behind 760, there are a couple sculptures there that are part of a rotating exhibit, and I believe that the artists are, like those are available for sale. I don't know if Michael's here to correct me or not, but. And I think those are coming off of this round of exhibits in the next, like this year sometime.
Love
so
it.
just a thought.
Connect if you're here, please grab me. Yeah, love the idea.
Yeah, probably, what would it be, our Parks and Rec department? You should talk to. And if you had one of the site plans up that looked a little bit different than what was in the packet, so I kind of just want to confirm, the buildings kind of parallel to the rail line. Are those going to be a double facade with entrances from both sides?
Do you mind explaining what you mean by that?
Okay, yeah, so like the one that's the vertical mixed use, like the red and yellow, and that section, I guess that one specifically, since that has commercial, if that's going to be accessible from either side of the building?
Yes, and they'll look generally similar too. If by double facade, do you mean if they look the same? Yeah. People are going to be on the red line. They're going to see the buildings. Our plan, and nor would I ever do this in development, is not to cheapen kind of the rear of the building to save money. So aesthetically, right, the front should look like the back should look like the front, especially in this condition where people are on both sides, whether it's the rail, whether it's in the park. So there will probably be some nuanced changes with planning on like the doors.
So the greenway along the rail, that's actually the required frontage. That's an open space. Otherwise, the parking lot where you see of the other frontage, if you will, that's not a frontage under the ordinance requirements. So if they would like for the parking lot side to also be a frontage, they may do so. However, the requirement is for the frontage to be along the greenway.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was definitely having the frontage along the Greenway in mind. I've been on many train rides where you see the back of buildings, and it's not.
And that's a requirement of the ordinance. One of our comments on the last cycle was to make sure that they label the frontage of all buildings. I think they were intending to have that architecture along the Greenway. It just needs to be spelled out on the plan.
Okay, great. And just a few more things. I know, I believe it was Commissioner Dumas or one of the other board members asked about a second story and some of those, and you kind of explained why there's difficulties with that. What about adding ground floor retail on the building, that next building to?
The park?
Yeah, so like the second one down, like making all of that have ground floor commercial.
Sure. So just to make sure, are you referencing the building just to the right of the park itself or the next to the one on the trail? Maybe I have this one? Oh, there we go. I got a laser.
Yeah, that one, yes.
Okay. So similar to the vertical mixed use, what is difficult is just the economics of it at this point. So for us, if I had a magic wand, and I don't mean this funny, I mean it seriously, I'd love to create vertical mixed use throughout the apartment complexes, and you would add more. But similar to what Jason said, right? We're the developer on record. We will be the seed capital to provide this, and so we know that we have to hit a certain hurdle rate in order to attract equity, in order to place debt, and so there just is a point in which the cost of vertical mixed use exceeds your ability to finance the project, and so at this point, from a vertical standpoint, we think that we're at that cap before you would get really nervous about this project never moving forward. And so to try to prevent this being a stalled project, like I know there is another one in Huntersville, we're just trying to be honest and transparent about what is doable, what's not, so we all don't get in a weird situation. So if rates came way down and costs came way down, I would love to extend it. That's just where we're at today.
Okay, I appreciate the honesty with that. And then just, I kind of wanted to follow up with some of the others. We just had a previous public hearing with 16 attainable units being offered, and I know you said you may be able to come up with 5. No pressure.
Yeah, fair enough.
But that is important.
Similar answer, right? I mean, we started with kind of 1 and 2 and 3, and we've continued to inch up as we've gotten costs. So I'm never going to be one that promises something to get through a rezoning. I just don't believe in it. I believe in being transparent and where I'm at. So where I'm at is 5 units. If I can do more, I will continue to make sure that I'm updating, do that in good faith. We have business partners with other projects that have upwards of 25% and some senior housing. So it's not a lack of desire. It's just making sure we can get all this done. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Board, any other questions? Planning, any questions? Okay. All right, thank you so much. We do have
so much for your time.
3 public comments. June Overcash, would you like to go again?
Hello, I'm June Overcash, a lifelong resident at Huntersville. This property is located on Highway 115, and it's been in our family since the 1800s. My grandparents were Robert Neal Knotts and Maddie Mills Knotts, and they were residents on this property all of their lives. Their farm was a staple in our family where everyone enjoyed family reunions, Sunday dinners, cookouts, and shared ancestry while swinging on the front porch swing. Although the house no longer remains, this proposal is for the remaining portion of our farm. As a lifetime resident here and property owner in Huntersville and Mecklenburg County, the town has experienced tremendous growth, which reflects changes to the town and surrounding areas. Huntersville continues to be a great place to live, raise a family, and have a career. When working with Michael Cox, owner of Peak Development, I witnessed firsthand the attention, detail, and consideration he exhibited in planning Station South development. Station South will reflect the heritage of Huntersville and the small town steeped in family traditions. Our family is pleased with the proposed Station South development, and upon completion, it will provide excellent community space as well as an asset to the Huntersville area. We request the Commissioner's approval for the proposed site, and thank you for your service and consideration.
Thank you. David McDonald, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is David McDonald. I've been in Huntersville since 1999 with my family. I represent the Lake Norman Church of Christ, which is an adjacent property to this development. We are in favor of the development because it will bring additional foot traffic to our area, both residential and commercial. We like the fact that the traffic flow will be improved, hopefully, with these new roads and the development. We know that there will be a trail that will bring additional foot traffic, and people will have exposure to not only our community church, but also to the community in general. We're excited because we know that the developer is doing a professional job at producing not only this project, but a couple other projects in that immediate area. We've worked with them for a couple of years now, and we see everything being very positive, and we encourage the board to, or the town to vote for the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Marty Kane, are you still here? You have 3 minutes. You want to speak? You're all do it? Okay. All right, thank you, sir. All right. You're on to item 10A. Consider approving Fire Station Number 4 Park Master Plan, Michael J. Cox. Thank you, sir.
So in front of you tonight is the Fire Station Number 4 Park Master Plan that we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 months. Just to do a quick overview. The project is located on McElwain Road, just south of Cedarfield 2 subdivision and just to the northwest of Huntington Green. It is the 7 remaining acres of the Fire Station 4 parcel. The process we had 3 public input meetings on site. We're fortunate enough to have it on site with the fire station being located there. Conducted online survey, had about 170 responses. Received feedback on social media, held 2 stakeholder committee meetings. This map here kind of shows you, to the right of the red line is the park site. To the left is the Lake Norman Charter Elementary School that is under construction, if you recall. We do have a joint use agreement for the gym, and we're working on adding the 6 tennis courts on the school property. All right, so the 3 public input meetings, the first meeting was more of a vision, clean slate. Here's the property, here's the constraints. People gave us different words of what they want the park to feel like, what kind of program they would like to see, what type of park amenities they like to see. Then also we had questions related to, you want more of this or less of that? So that public survey trade-offs is more like, do you want as many amenities you can get and pack it in there and don't worry about the tree canopy? Or do you want more tree canopy or a balance and so forth? So those are other questions that we got some great feedback on. So after that first public input meeting and online survey, to the left is the amenities that are ranked the highest: restroom facilities, bike trails, playgrounds, walking trails, pickleball, tennis, covered shelter, splash pad, pollinator garden, and so forth. And then the one trade-off that was definitely one side, it's more important to preserve the natural slopes and tree canopy of the existing site, first maximizing the site to include as many park elements. Also during that public input, because of the property is only 7 acres, we weren't going to put a soccer field or a baseball field because that would take up your whole site. So that was one of those amenities that wasn't even a choice because it wouldn't fit this site. And then to the right are just some of the comments people left for us as well on the survey. Once again, talking about preserving trees. Some people felt like it shouldn't be built here because of the other 2 schools being built. Once again, this is a neighborhood park. This is not a park like Bradford or Richard Beard that's going to draw thousands of people on a weekend. This is much a different type of park that will not impact the traffic like some of those others. And also, mountain bike trail. Unfortunately, we don't have as much land for a good mountain bike trail, but there is maybe an opportunity to use the remaining land behind Lake Norman Charter School, so we're talking about that. And also, we heard a lot about including a crosswalk to help the folks from Cedarfield access the park, as well as extending sidewalks down to the Hunting Green community as well. So that's something we're looking at as well. I'm going real fast. I know you all been here a while, so I'm just going fast. Just raise my hand if you want me to stop. And so after that first meeting and gather that input, we came back with 2 concepts, and we pretty much hit on 6 or 7 of the top 8 requested amenities. Both of the concepts have the exact same elements. It's more the layout is a little different. So people have an opportunity to vote, do you like concept 1 better or concept 2? Concept 1 was by far the one that people recommended the most. Also, you might have liked concept 1 better overall, but maybe something in concept 2 you liked a little better. So that graph at the top, there was a few elements that, such as the location of the park restroom, they liked the concept 2 better just a little bit than concept 1. So there was some like tweak in between 1 and 2. And then there's a bunch of more comments at the bottom about people, some people are worried about maybe being open too late, especially if you have lights on court. So there's some question about time. And typically we don't parks till 10 o'clock if they have lights. So that was something that came up. And like I said, I'm not going to read every single one of them, but a lot of them, once again, about tree preservation. And so to the right was the final plan based on all those 2 public input meetings. So that plan there was taken back to the community and got feedback. Everybody seemed to really like that plan. The other plans you didn't see because I went too fast had the pickleball courts further to the south where the shelter was. There was concerns about being too close to a property owner. So we moved the pickleball courts to the central location. The restroom is centrally located between the splash pad, playground, and the pickleball courts. We heard the want for natural surface trails as well as paved trails. So at the entrance of the park, we do have that half-acre passive lawn, so that trail there will be paved. And then, of course, the one in the woods will be more your natural surface. And if you see the red line going down below the shelter towards the property red line, that is where that trail might be able to extend into Lake Norman Charter School's property. So overall, we felt like we always like to say it's a park plan for the people, by the people, that they give us the input and we're kind of showing what they requested. Any questions? I know it's fast, but Anthony's falling asleep, so I want to keep on going. So if the next steps would be, if y'all approve this master plan tonight, obviously we'll go back to the community now that we know what's in the park plan. We'll get people to start submitting names for the park. Also, I mentioned this, Park Direct Trust Fund grant is due May 1st, which we were planning on applying. Got to have a park master plan, so that's the first step. So we'd submit that by May 1st. So there's a couple of approvals that have to come back to you all to take those next steps. And then move that project from a concept plan into construction document phase and then bidding and so forth. So that's kind of where the Parks and Rec Commission, oh, wow, she deserves a star. So, the last couple of months with both these projects going on, it's, they've had to put a lot of time and effort, and geez, you're on a big star. So you want to introduce yourself since you stay? Oh, if you all stand up and introduce yourself. Yes. Yeah, y'all both big stars. So that's a long way to wait. But yeah, we've done a lot of engagement, and doing 2 park projects at the same time has been a lot of time and commitment. So we appreciate that. Any questions?
There was talk at some point about a potential theme. I think there was talk about making the splash pad kind of like the firehouse. Did I miss that? I was I'm tired. So you might have mentioned it, but was there a theme decided on?
Yeah, typically, so when we do a park master plan, it doesn't get into the details of the splash pad and the playground. Once we get further into that, we'll kind of get more feedback from the community, maybe through social media or something like that. Hey, we're looking at a theme. This makes sense to be a fire station thing where the playground and the splash pad somehow be that. Yeah, that usually comes in the next phase.
Yeah, so not a question. I just wanted to take a minute. I feel like you guys almost always hit it out of the park with your master plans. I will say always. And, just thank you to your staff you do a great job getting community engagement and feedback and then listening to that and incorporating it into the designs. So thank you to you. Thank you for the committee, especially if you're working on a few of these at the same time.
One of our favorite parts of the job here in the community.
Motion for item 10A.
I'll make a motion for Nick's Pickleball Park, but couldn't help myself.
Absolutely not, I forbid that.
I know, I just thought I'd go for it. I make a motion to approve the Fire Station 4 Park Master Plan.
May I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? And I just want to second Commissioner Bergsman and Mr. Jaycox on the Planning Committee Advisory Board that helps us. They put in a lot of work to make this thing happen, so I appreciate that. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we're on to item 10B, discuss board commissioner committee assignments. And so this is, I'll just give a little lead in. We are kind of evaluating the workload of staff and the committee appointments for the elected officials, and also just making sure that we have enough balance. So, Mr. Roberts, you're to lead.
I may actually put you to sleep now, that's for sure. So the first page you have in front of you now is basically the committee assignments for the boards for various agencies that are out there. There are some that either, we just highlighted a few, there's probably others that need to be added and or highlighted. So ultimately, we're looking for feedback from the board. Sometimes your schedules change. Obviously, you may take in a new job and you can't meet on Wednesdays, or you may, whatever. And so we just want to make sure we get this right, take some off, add some, move people around if need to be moved around. So we'll be looking for feedback from you on that. I'll skip to the next ones. There are a couple other, I think, slides that were in your presentation. I won't go through all those, but the last meeting, you told me to come back and get staff to give you information on sort of, how many times these committees are meeting, who's attending, et cetera, and not to, I'll pick on the Board of Adjustments, not that they didn't want to meet, we just didn't have stuff for them to meet about. So the Board of Adjustments, for example, I don't think they've met in like 12, 13, 14 months. Well, they hadn't had anything, they hadn't had anything, it's not their fault. There has to be a Board of Adjustment in place, but there are many ways you can handle that. You can keep a separate board, and I'm using them, for example. You can keep a separate Board of Adjustment. You could combine them potentially on the planning board. Some towns, typically probably a lot smaller town, sometimes the actual board is the Board of Adjustment. I'm not recommending any of those, I'm just giving you examples. You may have HOAB, may have met, and I don't have it up in front of me, so without it being in front of me, may have met 4 out of 12 times or 5 out of 12 or 13 times. Planning board pretty much meets every month, sometimes around Christmas, they may not meet, but they typically meet. ESC, all the other committees are for you. So for us, we're just going to feedback what you want to do. If you make some changes, I think one of the boards we changed recently was the Arts Committee because they were not needing to meet as much. So we made some changes to allow them to meet quarterly. Emily had to come back and do some changes to the bylaws, bring that back to you for changes. So I'll stop there and just say if there are changes to be made to these various committees, there may need to be some bylaw changes. There may be some changes that are needed even in the maybe the zoning and or subdivision ordinance if they're applicable there. So we would need to do a little more homework and bring those amendments back to you if need be. So I'm done.
Okay. So the board has been kind of reviewing this committee assignment thing to try to figure out how to balance this because in addition to taking on Lake Norman Transportation Committee, I also have Metro Mayors, which has added additional commitment for me. And so we're still working through the different things to figure out who can take on some of these responsibilities. So that's still in progress. We know that, let's see, I'll just go through them as I've been going through them. The Environmental Sustainability Committee meets monthly. They are content to continue to do that. I had that input from Commissioner Hunt. The Greenway Trail Bike Commission, they are content to continue to meet monthly, and they do a lot of work. Obviously, Parks and Rec continues to meet monthly because they have a lot on their plate, and they are doing lots of hard work for our different aspects of the Parks and Rec Department. We will have one change to that coming up, just to one member dropping off. The Planning Board continues to meet monthly, as they are obviously very busy. If you've seen all the public hearings we have, they continue to stay busy. We will be replacing some members in June. And then that brings us to the Board of Adjustment. We will throw out that for discussion on what to do with that, put under the planning board, revisit in 6 months. We can discuss that now. And then Public Arts also has already changed to quarterly, so they're good to go. And then that also brings us to the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board, which has not met over the past few months. There are only 3 members currently left, as some have dropped off as their terms ended. And so we need to discuss both the Board of Adjustment and the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board. And Commissioner Walsh, I think you had some ideas. You want to kick us off?
Yep, I'm going to kind of go through these. So first of all, with the, in reference to the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board, certainly had some discussions around that, but the duplicative nature of it, the fact that nobody else in North Carolina has one, so it would be my recommendation that we dissolve that. For the Board of Adjustment, I think we can create some efficiencies by bringing them in under the Planning Board, potentially look at some alternate positions for them. You know, as you said, they haven't met since we have been aboard, and I think the Planning Board does, you know, not only does a great job, but can handle that, and would have that experience and know-how, given how few times the Board of Adjustment meets. One of the things we all run into here is that we're it's like every month or every other month, we are appointing people, and people come off, and sometimes there are people who serve on those that want to serve on another one. So I think a more efficient way to handle that is to align all of the appointments. I don't mean that we're replacing the entire boards, but to do that in our first meeting in March. It would allow our communications department to start in early January, really getting the word out to our communities, because sometimes, in fact, I just had somebody reach out to me the other day and wanted to know about the Environmental Sustainability Committee, and I'm like, I don't remember when the appointments are coming up, you know, those type of things. So one of the things we could do is create some real energy around these appointments, do it in January, you know, sometime into February, announce it, get people behind it, do maybe some meet and greets, those type of things, and then do the appointments our first meeting in March, and then the only time during the year we would have to deal with it would be, you know, somebody drops off, so it'd be kind of a one-off appointment. In order to implement it, I don't think we have to get into the details right now, but, you know, we'd have to just spreadsheet all the current boards. Years ago, we somehow got out of sync with the Greenway Committee. So one year we were appointing 4 people, the following year 2, and the following year 3. So what we did is we just extended somebody's term for a year, and that allowed us to get back on that appointing 3 every year, because you kind of don't want to lose that institutional knowledge. So we could spreadsheet everybody, figure out when the appointments are up, do we extend, or and how we handle that. And then the final thing, I think, just to create some consistency, is currently this board meets and the Greenway board meets at 6 o'clock. Parks and Rec and our planning board meet at 6:30. I would advocate that we just start all of those meetings at 6 o'clock. Obviously, the environmental sustainability would stay at 3:30. But just, again, to create that consistency across all our boards. What time does the board meet? It's 6 o'clock. So those would be my recommendations.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Commissioner Rivers.
Just for clarity, the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board, you stated that they have how many members left?
They have 3 left. The remainder, they had 2 vacancies, and then the remainder of the members, which were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they had total of 7 still active. They all, their terms on their appointments ended at the end of February.
Okay. I know Commissioner Walsh, you spoke about the time and the consistency. I can understand the 6 o'clock. I think being a part of committees, I think they should be governed based upon accessibility for people. And what I mean by that is making sure that people are able to get to those meetings on time. So maybe that's why Parks and Rec and, I'm sorry, yes, is that right? What time do y'all meet? Is it, y'all meet at 3:30? But maybe those times vary because of making sure that people are able to get there. Some people work, so they might not get off until 5:30, 6 o'clock, so 6:30 may be best. So I think with the time, maybe those need to be governed based upon the need of the committee. That's just my thoughts on that.
I agree with Commissioner Rivers. I think when it comes to the timing of things, the committee should have a say in that. And, you know, I think that if we have that on the information, on the application, you know, people can apply based on their schedule. And it doesn't restrict somebody from being able to do that. So I like the variety that we have with the times. I think we should keep that. I have had some thoughts over the last few months about HOAB and whether or not there's different ways that we can utilize that board. I do agree, like, since we're the only one in North Carolina, you're absolutely right, that has it. And I'm not sure if that, you know, if it makes sense to eliminate just for that reason. If I'm in the minority, I'm fine with that. But I do wonder sometimes if there's ways as a board where we have things we want to research, and I think the NDO is a good example of that when we talked about it last week. You know, we could ask them to research. Is this something that we want for Huntersville, that people want for Huntersville? Can you do that research for us? So that's, I feel like there's a way to utilize them, but I don't know exactly all those ways that could possibly be. I'm just thinking
Mayor Pro Tem, you have anything? She's still thinking. Commissioner Quarles? All right, Commissioner Bursland?
And I'll go in the opposite order that you listed them, just to mix things up a little bit. And is Michael J. Cox, is he still here? Okay, because I guess my question on the times is, I mean, when I was on Parks and Rec, it was 6:30 p.m., it's still 6:30 p.m. I'm just curious if there is a particular reason for that, but that can be an MJ question later. On the surface of it, I'm okay with making it consistent for the most part across the board, but I probably would want to just hear input from current committee members and staff before 100% agree. I definitely, you said aligning the appointments to March, I think is a great idea. I am also often confused and not remembering which time of year is which committee, and that would give an opportunity. I think it would be lovely to kind of bring back the idea that we invite applicants for a meet and greet before we make appointments, and I think that would be easier to do if they were all at one time of year. In relation to the Board of Adjustments, my opinion is, I feel like we get a lot of folks that are on Board of Adjustments that then apply for another committee because it's not very active. At the same time, when they would have something, I think it's very important that the people who are hearing that have experience, and it wouldn't be their first time listening and participating on a committee because they don't meet very much. So I agree that I feel like looking into rolling it under planning could be potentially a good idea. Just want to hear staff feedback on that. And with HOAB, on this, I concur with Commissioner Dumas. The fact that we're the only ones that have that committee is not necessarily an end-all be-all argument for me. I do think that there are opportunities to explore looking into staff or board-directed input in regards to municipal ordinances like an NDO or other things like that. So on that one, I am not at this moment in time interested in dissolving it.
Just a couple of follow-up things. Again, when I'm suggesting we go to 6 o'clock, I don't mean the next meeting. You know, it might even be the March 1st type of thing. I think there's a couple of reasons, not only the consistency, but also impact on staff having to wait till 6:30. Also getting people home a little bit earlier. I know, because I, at one point, served both on greenways and planning, or bleh, now you got me saying it, Parks and Rec. I was going to get it out yet. And for me, it was just we're starting at 6, we're usually done 7:30, getting home at a decent time as opposed to, just going a little bit later in the evening. I would say if with the dissolving of the HOAB, if the idea is to use them for other things, you're probably going to have to redefine their mission anyway, because that's not their mission to look into certain things. Actually, their mission way back when's not even what they're doing currently, but you'd probably have to dissolve it anyway to form something that would address some of the things that you really want to do, or potentially that we'd want to do as a board. So again, my suggestion, dissolve them, and if you want to create something, kind of like when we had the Environmental Sustainability Committee, that was a brand-new thing, and we defined what we expected of those. So that would be my thing of the HOAB is kind of trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Anybody else? Okay, so one idea that I also had, which came out of kind of discussions with the current planning board members, was to add alternates to the planning board. That was something that they had mentioned, that there isn't kind of like it's getting late and we're having trouble making words, a succession plan there. And so I wanted to throw that out as an idea as well, as to kind of maybe we might amend the planning board structure to have 3 alternates, and then as those members drop off or they need to resign because they move or whatever, we have a bank of people that are ready to kind of move into planning, and then they would get the same training and same information that the active members of planning board had. So I just want to throw that out there too.
Would alternates go to the meetings? Yeah. So they would have the information, they just wouldn't participate?
Yep, they would go and have the information, wouldn't participate, but would be kind of members that would be kind of members in training, sort of, and then they would get the same information. And then if someone had to leave or drop off, they would be available to replace somebody immediately.
So maybe I'm not following the Board of Adjustment reporting through that,
So here's the deal.
Maybe the alternates?
Well, here's the deal. We don't actually have to have a Board of Adjustment. We have to have somebody do it. So planning board and/or the town board can do it. Back on a previous board I served, when the Board of Adjustment was a little bit more active, they did have alternates, and they did attend the meetings. They did not vote. And so what they became is the bullpen, because if you think about it, I mean, whether it's planning board or whatever, I mean, they're making important decisions. So it was an opportunity for somebody to be appointed to that board and not, in meeting one, get shocked into a decision. So I think it's probably a good idea if we added alternates to the planning board, then they get some time to, sit it out a little bit, attend the meetings, they don't vote. And I can't remember the Board of Adjustment, I don't remember all the particulars, were they allowed to ask questions, that kind of stuff. But anyway, it was an opportunity to kind of be in the bullpen.
So for the quasi-judicial matters that the Board of Adjustment handles, the alternates are not allowed to actually participate in the evidentiary hearings. They can sit and listen, but they can't actually interact.
I couldn't remember. It's been a while since we had one of those meetings. So that would be, I think, a great idea. Have your 9 members, maybe however many alternates, 3 alternates, whatever. Correct. You would dissolve the Board of Adjustments. Those functions would then be transferred to the planning board.
Ms. Loop, do you have something to add? I can see your wheels turning.
No, I was just thinking through, there would be several procedural steps that we would need to take in order to dissolve them, reassign those duties to the planning board. We would have to have a text amendment to redefine that in the ordinance. Also, we would need to have essentially changes to those rules of procedure for the planning board. Obviously, other things later down the road, training, et cetera. So there would be several steps that we would need to take to make sure that it all came to fruition.
That was what the clarification I wanted.
Mayor Clark, I just have a quick question, follow up on that. Would we be able to, if two things are happening concurrently, possibly dissolving Board of Adjustments and creating alternate positions for Planning Board, can we give priority or some kind of way to offer it to current Board of Adjustment volunteers if they're interested?
So my
Or the alternate
understanding-
spots on planning.
To the alternates that we don't currently have, that would be new, that would be up to the board as to who they wanted to appoint for the alternates. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you wanted the current planning board members to assume the duties of the Board of Adjustment, and those members would stay on the planning board until their term expires. And then once those terms expire, you could reappoint new members.
Absolutely.
I probably didn't explain it well because it is late. So if we create 3 alternate positions for Planning Board, at the same time that things are moving forward to Board of Adjustments, can we offer to Board of Adjustment volunteers? Because we would have to have applications for those alternate positions because we don't have them currently.
Sure, I understand. And that would be up to the board as to who they wanted to appoint to those
It
seats.
could be the 3 remaining HOAB members, it could be the Board of Adjustment members, it can be whoever you want it to be.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to weigh in on all the things. So first, I like the idea of making appointments at the same time. I think that sounds good. I understand wanting to make the timing work and have everything be at 6 o'clock, but I agree with the others that it should be based on what the committee members can do. And then we've heard people say that HOAB can be a good training ground for the planning board, but also that it's duplicative of the planning board, and that's coming from people on the planning board who have said that. So I think it makes sense to have some HOAB folks be alternates to the planning board, so they have the option of being appointed to those positions.
Let's go, I've kind of made notes here. I'm just going to go through them one by one. So we just need a head nod or a Ms. Sloop for, like, if we want to ask staff.
A straw vote's fine.
Address staff to, like, make these changes. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to go, I guess, group by group in terms of, or board by board, commission by commission, as to what changes you want to see. If it's something that you want applied to all of them, such as the appointments being made in March, then you could say for all of them.
Okay. So we'll start with planning. For the planning board, the 2 items we had were add some number of alternates for that, and then roll the Board of Adjustment responsibilities to the planning board. So head, nod, or wave if you're for those. Okay. And then the next one was for all advisory boards, move appointments to begin on March 1st of 2026. So,
We would vote on the first meeting in March, so they probably would become effective April 1st.
okay, let's check with
Yep.
And for that one, I did mention to Commissioner Walsh, just because this was something that was kind of new and we haven't necessarily vetted, we would want to, at a staff level, go back and review all of the different sets of rules of procedure and bylaws, just to make sure that that is doable. If it is something that is doable, we can move forward with that. But if there is any reason why the appointments could not be made in March, we would let you know. But if you want to direct us now to start researching that and moving in that direction, we can.
So then the head nod would be for directing staff to explore moving all advisory board appointments to be made on the beginning of March going forward, and then that would be the kind of the guidance. So just kind of nod your head if you're thinking about that.
One question. Would we is the idea that if this was for March of next year, that, because I know planning's coming up in June, so are we thinking that it would be extending any terms till next March?
So pending what staff says, it would either extend or shorten terms for certain people, depending on who's impacted, but they would have to research all that and let us know if that was something feasible to do.
Okay. My head nod's going to come with an asterisk.
Yeah, so yeah, it kind of comes with a side note of depends on what they find, yeah. So what we're directing them to research, is this something we could even do and what the impact would be if we did it? Yeah, okay, got that one. Now, so then that Board of Adjustment, if we roll the responsibility of Board of Adjustments, then we kind of need a head nod for staff to explore dissolving the Board of Adjustment and rolling it to.
So if you do assign all of their duties to the planning board, they won't have any duties left, so they would need to be dissolved.
So is that a motion or still a head?
So as to that, we would need to clean up the ordinance, because right now the ordinance includes a Board of Adjustment, so we'd have to, when we're making the text amendments to assign the duties to planning board, we would have to remove the language related to the Board of Adjustment, and then you would have to, from a procedural standpoint, essentially pass a resolution stating that you are dissolving the Board of Adjustment.
So again, it's directing staff to explore and amend the rules that we currently have that would ultimately dissolve the Board of Adjustment. Is that what we're head nodding?
Correct. So you all would pass a resolution to dissolve the Board of Adjustment. We would do a text amendment to clean up references for both the Planning Board and the Board of Adjustment. And then also for Planning Board, at the same time, we would simultaneously update their rules of procedure to change their duties.
Okay. And that leaves us to the last one, which is HOAB. And the one discussion is just dissolve it all together. And so I don't know where we stand with board members wanting to dissolve it all together. So we have two people that said no, but then I don't know if any.
I think Nick's argument or comment at the end about, like, that's not the purpose of what they are now. So based on my thoughts of how we could use them, like if we need that, if we want to do that, that would be creating something else.
Right, so we would still
so
have to
I'm
dissolve
fine with
HOA.
dissolving.
Okay.
Based on
All right,
that.
yeah. So if we were to create another thing, I don't know what, I have a parentheses for what we would call it, to do special board assignments or some such thing, we would have to dissolve the HOAB, I believe, to make that make sense.
Could we do, is there a commitment to doing those two things concurrently?
Yeah, so it would be, so one thing is dissolve HOAB. The second thing is form a special projects board. I don't know what we're going to call it. And have to have staff explore and define both of those things. It's two separate things.
Obviously, I'm for dissolving the HOAB. I think we probably need some more discussions on creating a new monster, so to speak. I mean, I'm not against it. I just think we need to think through it a little, if we need it and what we want to do. Probably monster was a bad choice of words.
Yeah, let's call it
It's late.
We're not going to call it monster. If we create a replacement entity that is for special projects or research for the board that would function in a different way of the HOAB, do we have a head nod to dissolve the HOAB as it currently stands? Mostly? Okay. And then, so we're directing staff to address that. And then the next, the parentheses with no title entity for special projects or research or whatever we want to call them is we will just continue that discussion and figure out what that is as a board, what we want to make that be. Does that make sense? Okay. Whew, we did it. All right. I think that's, everybody have their tasks.
Emily, we got it? 2 resolutions, dissolve the BOA and HOAB,
A
right?
little bit more to it than that, but we'll take care of it.
We just add a little tiny bit to the workload for the attorney's office. Okay, thank you so much for that discussion input. I appreciate it a lot, very thoughtful. So then the next item is 10C, consider approving legislative priorities and the government.
I'll make this quick. Hopefully, you've seen the committee that worked on that. It was government affairs, I'm going to call it. I can't remember the name of the committee, but I think Mayor Pro Tem Hunt, Commissioner Quarles, and the mayor on that committee to kind of help and we had staff, I think Emily and Bobby were involved to kind of help sort of bring these priorities together. I'm not going to read all these. You can see them. You have seen them hopefully at least a couple times. Saw them at the retreat. Hopefully you got them in an email. I'll stop there, and ultimately we just want to make sure these are the legislative priorities of the entire board that we would be moving forward with. And that's it.
Any questions? Thoughts, concerns? All right. Can we get a motion for adopting the legislative priorities?
I make a motion to approve the 2025 legislative priorities.
May I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, and we are on to closing comments. Commissioner Rivers.
Just want to say happy early birthday to our Mayor Pro Tem, Jennifer Hunt, who will be celebrating her birthday on tomorrow. So happy birthday, and happy birthday to Commissioner Bergsman as well.
Commissioner Walsh? None. Commissioner Dumas? Mayor Pro Tem? Commissioner Quarles?
I've been so quiet tonight because my gout is killing me.
I was expecting a speech from you right there, so I'm sorry that your gout is probably, Commissioner Bergsman. All right, and I just want to wish the Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner Bergsman a happy birthday as well. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.